Good afternoon, Lynn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, there. Now we hear you. Thank you. Do we have any board members on the phone? Not yet. So we're going to have to wait. It doesn't look like we have a quorum then. So I think Dr. Jameson was coming to the Henderson office. Is that correct? Okay.
We don't have any information down here about anybody.
We're trying to get Dr. Jameson and Levon on their cell phones to see how far out they are.
This is Marie Kerr joining.
Hi, Marie. Thank you. You let us create a quorum, so I know we're expecting 2 more members, but I think we'll go ahead and get started because we have a pretty lengthy agenda today. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Today is the meeting of the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange, which has been properly noticed for 12 noon today, and we're teleconferencing between Carson City office and the Henderson office. Want to welcome everyone, and for those board members, if you're on the phone line and you're not speaking, it probably will be easier if you put your phone on mute. And with that, I'm going to have Mr. Fisher take roll call and see if there are any announcements.
Good afternoon. Ms. Johnstone?
Here in Las Vegas.
Ms. Lewis? Dr. Jameson? Ms. Kerr?
Here on the phone.
Dr. Ford? Mr. Wilden? Mr. Kipper?
Alexia Emmerman for the Commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. Mullenkamp? Ms. Ekins?
Here in Las Vegas.
Ms. Campbell?
Here in Carson City.
And with that, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Do we have any announcements that we want to make before we get started with the agenda? Okay. All right. Thank you. Then we will proceed then to public comment. And before I ask those people that want to come forward to testify as part of public comment, I wanted to make the announcement that the issue with Mr. Bassich has been resolved. And I don't know if he's here to speak or not, but I do know that we have a couple of people in Las Vegas that wish to testify, and I don't know if there's anyone here in Carson City. Can I have a show of hands? Okay, we've got one person.
For the record, Ms. is in Las Vegas.
Excuse me, Lynn, I didn't hear you.
For the record, Ms. Lewis is in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay, thank you. Can we get a show of hands in Henderson on who would like to testify?
Yeah, we've got about 3 people, and I've got some folks who are queued up and ready to go.
Okay. If you could please identify yourselves for the record.
Can you hear me?
One of the things that we need to do, these microphones have not been working very well, so if you can get it as close to your mouth as possible and right directly in front of you instead of off to an angle. It seems when it's off to an angle, it doesn't want to work very well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Jack Kim. I'm a Senior Associate General Counsel with Healthline Nevada. With me, I have Kyle Klingo, who's our Chief Operating Officer for Healthline Nevada. And we felt compelled to come in and provide an update on Mr. Basich's case.
Can you keep yourself closer to the microphone because you keep fading in and out? Thank you.
Is that better?
Much. Thank you.
Okay. So we felt compelled to come and give everyone an update on Mr. Basich's case. And at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Klingo, who can kind of walk through everything.
We felt compelled. I'm Kyle Klingo, for the record, Health Plan of Nevada. And we felt compelled to come today and follow up with the board regarding the facts and circumstances surrounding Mr. Basich's exchange enrollment. We have also received permission from Mr. Basich to discuss the specifics of his case with the board. And I will be reading extracts from the full letter that we are submitting to the board today. HPN had received more than 40 files from the vendor as recently as just last week, all of which indicated that Mr. Basich should be enrolled as of March 1st, 2014. HPN committed to strive to find a solution to this unfortunate situation, and we believe we have done so. If real changes do not occur, we believe the sustainability and ultimate success of the Silver State Exchange is in serious jeopardy. We want the Silver State Exchange to succeed. Before discussing this matter, we must make it clear that HPN's decision cannot be viewed or noticed as an applicable precedent for how we may treat any future cases of missteps by the Silver State Exchange Administrator improperly enrolling individuals with exchange carriers. HPN is exploring and reserving all legal rights and remedies it may have against the parties responsible for this unfortunate situation. Because these parties have been unable to find a solution to this matter and have failed to take responsibility for their actions, HPN has stepped forward to adjust Mr. Basich's coverage so that it is effective as of January 1st, 2014. More specifically, here's some of the facts as we know them. Mr. Basich began his attempt to negotiate and navigate through the Nevada HealthLink application process in October 2013. Xerox enrolled Mr. Basich into another carrier's plan with an effective date of January 1st, 2014, and appears to have forwarded premium to this carrier for January and February. Xerox then provided enrollment information to HPN, and HPN enrolled Mr. Basich in an HPN plan with an effective date of March 1st, 2014. HPN received over 40 files from Xerox, indicating a March 1st effective date as recently as just last week. Finally, this week, HPN received January and February premium payment and enrollment information from Xerox so that we could enroll Mr. Basich with a January 1st, 2014 effective date. After 5 months of non-response and confusion, Xerox then instructed HPN on the same day we finally received the January and February payments to reach out to this member immediately, which we have done. We are fearful that if press reports are accurate, there may be thousands of other situations like this where individuals think they're buying an insurance product, but there has been no notice to or acceptance by the insurance carrier. If the past is any indication for the future regarding administration by Xerox, we believe this board must act immediately to find a solution to these types of matters. In order to protect the Silver State Exchange, individuals that enroll through the exchange, and the carriers who voluntarily participate in the exchange, we suggest the following. If there are additional health care costs incurred above the premiums collected, the board should consider a penalty on the Silver State Exchange Administrator if the issues result from the administrator's negligence. If the member is responsible for the medical costs associated with going to a non-contracted provider because of administrator's negligence, the administrator should reimburse the member or cover those costs. Another possibility is that the state could impose discounted rates, for example, Medicaid rates on the providers when members receive treatment from non-contracted providers. Additionally, the board should consider allowing the exchange carriers to take over the billing and collection of premiums for their members. It appears that based on Mr. Basich's experience and our own experience with Xerox, that many of these problems are the result of Xerox's challenges in performing these functions. As vital as it is to find a resolution for the errors that may already be in the system, we believe it is equally urgent for this board to exact change in the Silver State Exchange administration immediately. Time is running out. Rate filings and submissions for 2015 are only weeks away. If real changes cannot be made in short order, HPN will have no other option than to seriously rethink its commitment to future participation in the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. HPN has proudly served Nevada for over 30 years. We have over 3,000 hardworking and dedicated employees in Nevada that are committed to helping people live healthier lives. We have a long history of stepping in to assist the state in a number of endeavors over the years. However, our involvement with the Silver State Exchange is at risk if changes are not made.
Thank you very much. Ms. Campbell, did you want us to continue public comment down here, or did you want to move it to Carson City?
No. How many other individuals in Henderson wish to speak?
1, 2.
Okay. Why don't you have them come forward? And we only have one person here.
Tamar Birch with Branch Benefit Consultants. I've been coming to the board meetings, and of course, as you know, thank you for expediting and getting some results with Larry. These numbers of these reports of how many people they have in their staff that don't even know about insurance, let alone assisting others. I have submitted a request to Xerox, and I gave them ample time to get this stuff done for me. They reached out to our agency because we do a lot of applications with the portal. I have not, as of date, have received any acknowledgement or anybody saying, hey, we're going to fix this or assist you to get it fixed. This has to stop. We have to stop the bleeding. This is too much, and I'm really concerned about special enrollment. Knowing that the deadline is coming up, I don't know if the board knows, but applications that have been created are now being stopped. People can't get onto their portal anymore, so they have no proof to show that they've had applications out there for them to try to create an application to get that effective date. So I wanted to just make sure that you guys are aware of that, because we are having problems right now. Luckily, our agency knows to print stuff because documentation is the key factor to all of this. But we are experiencing a lot of issues in that, which is making me more concerned about this population if they can't get coverage when they need to. Thank you.
Ms. Bird, before you leave today, I'm going to ask staff to get together with you so that you can explain exactly what it is that you testified about. I want to make sure that we have that correctly noted. Could you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Barbara Verplank. I'm a consumer, and I enrolled in this Blue Cross Blue Shield plan through an agent broker navigator on February 22nd. We paid for the entire plan at that time on a credit card. My credit card statement has been billed. I have it at home. I've got a zero balance statement from Nevada Health Link, but Blue Cross Blue Shield says they don't have me. I've been working on this for almost a month. Today I called Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they're telling me now that they're going to upload my information, and They will call me back before 6 o'clock tonight with a person to walk us through printing out temporary insurance cards. This is ridiculous. I'm paying COBRA insurance right now. My husband lost his job over a year ago. They've got my money. Where is my money? Where is my coverage? That's what I want to know. And every time I call Nevada Health Link, somebody will call me back. I have countless calls here. Shikari, Hope. I had a conference call with my broker and the broker in the Nevada Health Link, Kimberly, and she gave me my payment, my online payment confirmation number. That's pretty much the only thing that saved my soul so far. As of now, Blue Cross tells me I have a member number and a group number, but I have no way of confirming that. Zero. And my COBRA insurance ends on the 31st. So I need somebody to do something for me now. My husband is a diabetic, and the medication he has to take is ridiculous.
Thank you. I think we'll ask Carol if you can get her information and if we can work with Xerox to have this resolved today. Thank you for coming down, and I'm sorry you had to go down.
Thank you.
Anyone else there in Henderson?
No.
All right. How about here in Carson City? If you want to come forward, make sure your mic is turned on, and if you'll identify yourself for the record, please.
For the known challenges that consumers have faced in enrolling with the Nevada Health Link website. We would love to see Nevada adopt the same broad range of allowable reasons for a special enrollment period as the federal government has announced. We are pleased to see that the brokers will continue to be utilized as an important asset to Xerox and the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. Having completed over 2,000 applications for Medicaid, Nevada Checkup, and Qualifying Health Plan, it is our pleasure to assist all residents in the state of Nevada for special enrollment period. We look forward to continuing our special outreach and assistance to rural communities in Nevada, where we've seen the outreach resources are very scarce. As always, we are here to assist and support the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange as a key broker. We are happy to contact any and all lists that Xerox may have potential applicants and enrollees to assist in completion of their applications and finalizing of their payment process. I wanted to express that, so there's been numerous things about the special enrollment and how that's going to enroll.
Thank you for taking the time to come here today.
Thank you.
Any other public comment here? If you want to come forward, please. If you'll identify yourself for the record, please.
For the record, I'm Claudia Lamb. I've been here several times. Last week I came and talked to you about a problem that Xerox has had, not simply being able to change my address to what my legal address is. I talked to a lady and nothing got done. I still haven't heard anything from anyone, including an email that I sent at the beginning of last week. They just don't have the ability to fix something as simple as an incorrect address. It's really what needs to be looked at on a small scale. On the bigger scale, the really important issue, the people not like me, the people that don't have insurance yet, and through no fault of their own. Last week, I heard a board member suggest that for the special enrollment that we only use those 10,000 people who have yet to pay for their plan, and the other 78,000 people, I really feel like it's unfair not to offer to them the same thing that the federal government is encouraging. If they haven't been able to pick a plan because they don't have access to the internet, maybe because they're older, or they don't have access to a part of that website that provides something besides English. If English is not your first language, you're really out of luck when it comes to the way the folks at Xerox deal with you, not only on the website, but I'd venture to say that 16% of their operators are not bilingual, as are 16% of the folks here in this state that speak Spanish as a first language. So I encourage you to be fair and accept anyone who tried to enroll before the March 31st deadline And please don't penalize Nevadans for Xerox's absolute failure in this insurance plan. Thank you.
Anyone else here in Carson City? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment right now. We will have public comment again right before we adjourn the meeting. Moving on to agenda item number 3, we have the approval of the minutes for March 6th and 13th. I don't think the March 20th minutes were prepared in time to be part of the packet, so let's look at March 6th and 13th. Do we have any additions or changes or comments to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve March 6th? I can't hear.
Marie Kerr, motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Yvonne Lewis, second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed to the motion? Okay, motion carries. Looking at the minutes from March 13th, are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Atkins, so moved.
Okay, Ms. Kerr, are you seconding?
That's correct.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Not hearing anything.
Marie Kerr, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Henderson?
Everyone says aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, motion is approved then. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is discussion from the advisory committee, which is the Consumer Assistance Committee. And Ms. Atkins, are you going to lead the discussion on this as chairman of that committee?
Sure, I will try and be brief. Thanks to staff, I think primarily CJ and Damon and Sean. I'll just thank everyone for preparing the document. And as we discussed last time, the Consumer Assistance Subcommittee was concerned, and the board agreed that we would continue the Enrollment Assister Program, the EEF program, as we're now calling it, through the next open enrollment period, which ends at the end of February. At our last committee meeting, we reviewed the current Navigator entities and how they had been faring under very difficult circumstances with the website not working. But we did decide that we would recommend to the board that we keep the top 3 performing navigators, and are asking this board to approve that, which would be the Ramirez Group, the Great Basin Primary Care, which has a new name, if someone can remind me, and CARE. And so our recommendation to the board is to approve those 3 navigator entities to continue on the EEF program with grants from April 1st through, and I need a little assistance maybe from Shauna. I think we initially were discussing December 31st, but then I saw in a different report that there is funding through February 15th that we can use federal funds through then. So if you wouldn't mind clarifying that for me?
Yes, for the record, Shauna DeRose, yes, the budgets that we are preparing actually take the grantees through the end of February. While the second open enrollment may end on February 15th, there will be cleanup to do at the end of that period, so through the end of February of 2015.
Thank you, Shauna.
And is there a new name for Great Basin Primary Care that we need to note in the record?
It's Nevada Primary Care Association.
So that's my report.
All right, do we have any questions from, is everybody, is that one off? It is off, okay. Maybe this is one you need to stay back on. The other one you need to be on. Is there any Discussion or questions from board members to Ms. Atkins on the recommendation? All right, if there are none, is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Marie Kerr, motion to approve.
Also move.
Savon Lewis, I'll second the motion.
All right, so we've got the first by Ms. Kerr and a second by Ms. Lewis. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Marie
From
Kerr, yes.
everyone down south.
All right, thank you very much.
For the record, I'm Judy Fellhaber with Xerox Corporation. Would you like me to go ahead and make a comment? Okay. There's been a considerable discussion regarding the billing issues and the billing process through the Xerox systems. And we have had discussions internally as well as with several carriers and the representatives from SSHIX. At this point, what Xerox would like to make official is that we're very supportive of transitioning the billing and the premium collection duties to those carriers that are equipped and capable. We do understand that this is not an overnight change, and throughout the transition process, we do have to continue to focus on our systems and our processes to make it as easy for the consumers as possible. We will elect or will work with the SSHIX in order to select the carriers that would like to come forward to pilot the program and make certain that it is a convenient and a very doable transition in order to make certain that the consumers can properly and accurately and efficiently pay their premiums.
Thank you. Mr. Haycock, are you going to walk us through the presentation, if you would, please? And then why don't you stay there? If we have questions of you, you might be able to answer them for us. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Dr. is now here for the record.
Okay, thank you. We'll note that Dr. Jameson is here.
And just for the record, I had called in, but unfortunately I was in the call-in line that had no talking. So I did hear the motions on the minutes as well as the recent motion to approve the top 3 producers. And I just for the record wanted to say that I approved all of those, but was on the wrong call-in number, and I apologize.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson.
For the record, Damon Haycock, Finance and Research Officer for the Exchange. This purpose of this report, of course, is to provide information and recommendations regarding the continuation of aggregate billing in the Exchange's individual marketplace. So there is the background that the Exchange is required by law to provide aggregate billing for the Small Business Health Options Program, or SHOP program. But there is no law nor regulation that mandates an exchange perform the individual premium processing in that marketplace. When the Business Operations Solutions contract between the state of Nevada, the exchange, and Xerox was signed, it allowed for 2 methods of per member per month payment to Xerox for the first 3 base years that began this past January. So on the 3rd page of attachment CC, deliverable payment schedule, which should be attached to this report, or if it isn't, at least it's linked to the actual document on our website. The following options were provided, and you'll see a table beneath there on each year, year 1, year 2, year 3. We're obviously in year 1, and it shows an estimated monthly membership as well as the per member per month price that the exchange must pay Xerox based on performing individual aggregate premium processing. That's that $7.32 per member per month. And then it drops to $6.07 if the exchange had chosen not to allows Xerox to perform that function, and that is for this year. And there's some dollar amounts that go along with that. In year 2, again, it's $6.72 for the per member per month to continue allowing Xerox to perform aggregate billing on the individual marketplace, and it drops to $5.80 for the 2015 year if Xerox is no longer performing that function. And again, it drops again to $6.20. And so I won't read necessarily every one of these numbers for you. But what you can see is that there's a cost to the exchange to perform individual premium processing over the life of the contract. It totals out to be about $6.2 million, although that's predicated on the initial projections for enrollment figures, which we all here know we have not met. And so the total per member per month fee that we must pay Xerox must be built into our own per member per month fee. And in a report here later today, we'll discuss that process as well. But with nearly 22,000 enrollees that we have now, those figures in that table show a maximum amount, but aren't the exact dollar amount that we are required to pay per that contract. So a little background in history. Back in September 13th in 2012, the Consumer Advisory Committee made a recommendation that the exchange conducts individual billing to the board, and the board approved that. Based on some verbiage that I've quoted here. Despite the complexities, it is possible to streamline the premium billing and payment process to the benefit of both carriers and their consumers. And there's more language thereafter. Additionally, that Xerox contract was developed to provide this billing at a reduced cost to carriers. That was the plan. That the contract provides the exchange with an opportunity to streamline billing for individuals and families enrolled in qualified health plans, Medicaid, and CHIP, and ancillary products in a way that is convenient for Nevada consumers and potentially cheaper to Nevada carriers. On the last board meeting on March 20th, 2014, there was public comment that was provided by the Nevada Association of Health Plans on behalf of the carriers participating on the exchange this plan year. And in that written comment, NASHP or NAHP cited various issues with the exchanges or Xerox's ability to perform the premium collection billing. And I think you've heard some of those issues here in public comment today, but I'll briefly go over a few of those. That the consumer satisfaction is severely negatively impacted due to multiple and repeated payment and billing errors. That there are manual processes that involve the vendor providing enrollment Excel spreadsheets and line-by-line or payment Excel spreadsheets to the carriers that the carrier now has to review line by line instead of utilizing a traditional automated process. And when information in these fields don't match, a member's enrollment is delayed. Payment and billing issues have delayed information being sent to carriers in a timely manner to help carriers effectuate that coverage. And quality assurance issues increase with the exchange doing payment and billing separate from the carriers who ultimately effectuate coverage and issue cards. So further in that public comment, all carriers agree that they will take on the premium and billing function. Carriers anticipate that they may assume the premium collection and billing function on or after May 1st of this year, or after any special enrollment period, but no later than March 1st of 2015. So the concern that the board should contemplate is with the above timeline that there's a transfer of premium responsibility over a series of months, approximately 10 months, before this issue can be completely resolved. And although Xerox came to the table today to explain that they're willing to pilot this project, it's safe to say that there could be a concern that the amount of time that it takes to transfer this process from Xerox to the carriers will require Xerox to be doing two things in parallel, which is working with the carriers to transfer this process over, as well as continuing to fix the current process. And so those resources will be in both places at the same time. And if Xerox can fix the process for some of the carriers, it's safe to assume that fix should work for everyone. And so depending on resource allocation and what the board feels comfortable with, this could be a lot of duplicative effort. So there are two options on this board report: to continue individual billing or to discontinue individual billing. And there are pros and cons to both of those. The exchange's vendor, of course, Xerox, has made significant improvements since the onset of open enrollment in relation to the web portal and customer contact center accessibility, reduction of website errors, etc. They have added hundreds of staff resources to this project in an effort to meet their contractual deliverables. Xerox took on the financial management contractual obligation of their subcontractor. So this is key. This includes that process for individual billing. But unfortunately, Xerox was never prepared to meet these requirements outside of their initial project plan utilizing their subcontractor. Therefore, this process has obviously experienced issues. So the pros of allowing Xerox to continue this is that they attest that the issues will be resolved, or they had attested the issues would be resolved prior to the start of next year's open enrollment, and that consumers are already accustomed to sending payments through the website, over the phone, and to the post office box. A change midstream may cause additional consumer confusion. However, on the cons, Xerox does have major issues meeting these contractual deliverables for premium processing today. Consumers continue to provide public comment at meetings, as you heard today, as well as calls with complaints to the call center, to exchange staff, to board members, and political leaders about their inability to seek medical coverage due to errors on processing payments. If the carriers are prepared to absorb this function and the costs can be reduced to the exchange, it may be better to hand it to the carriers specifically. Then, of course, there's the discontinuing individual billing, and this is basically what I just said in reverse. The exchange's vendor has not met all the contractual deliverables. To date, there are still applicants who have made payments and have still not been enrolled in a qualified health plan. There are funds sitting at the bank, and no reconciliation or account application has occurred. There is confusion as to where these payments should be applied and then sent to the insurance carrier to effectuate enrollment. So the pros of discontinuing billing are that all insurance carriers participating on the exchange in 2014 provide health plans off the exchange and perform, or at least subcontract to a third-party administrator, the premium processing for those enrollments. The only difference in design appears to be that the fields that display on a bill that start with the premium, applying the advanced premium tax credit, the exchange fees, and the ending premium would change. And so there's kind of a really not so great example there in the table, but that's kind of a layman's way of looking at it. The carriers would be able to develop billing statements directly off of the 834 electronic enrollment files that the exchange would send daily with a monthly reconciliation file. That these files are being sent currently, and as mentioned in that NAHP public comment, some carriers are willing and capable to absorb this function as early as May 1st. The cons, of course, are that Xerox has developed the basics for individual premium processing, and with additional time can meet the contractual deliverables. The board approved individual premium processing early in the development of the exchange to assist consumers and carriers. The current 2014 per member per month fees are designed to pay Xerox for this function, and 2015 fees can be designed to continue performing individual premium processing. Again, that'll be at a later report. Last, consumers would receive multiple invoices for multiple carriers each month if they are enrolled in multiple plans if you discontinue billing. So what staff recommends to the board is to decide to continue or discontinue individual premium processing with Xerox. And if the decision is to discontinue individual premium processing, to declare a specific date that all insurance carriers participating on the exchange must be ready to absorb this individual premium processing. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Haycock. I'll open it up for discussion from board members to either Mr. Haycock or to Judy.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone.
Yes.
The carriers in their letter to the board indicated that they would be ready to go May 1st or later. I'm curious what Xerox's reaction is to the May 1st date.
We have not actually had an opportunity to speak to those particular carriers, but we would be willing to engage them as soon as possible. If there is anything that we can do to meet that deadline, we certainly would take all efforts to make that happen. I would also like to state that I don't believe that Xerox would be taking resources away from the other development areas of the system. We would be adding resources in order to accomplish this goal.
Any other questions? I have a question. Is it better to, if the board decided to discontinue the billing process, is it better to do one carrier at a time or have them all meet a commitment at a certain date? What are the pros and cons of that?
Of course, our development team would be the best team to ask this question to, but logistically, I would suggest that we start with one pilot, as we have with the reconciliations for enrollment right now, and work out the process because there may be some challenges that neither party could anticipate. Once that process is worked out with that willing pilot program, then I think it would be more efficient and easily unveiled to the remaining vendors. The only challenge that I see with sort of an all or none sort of decision is one carrier in particular has come forward and said they are not prepared to take on billings. So we want to be supportive of what is best for each of the carriers that choose to participate in the Nevada HealthLink exchange.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kerr, do you have any questions?
Yes. Does staff have a recommendation as to a proposed date that should be effective for all carriers, assuming either if they go all at once or if they go one at a time? What would be the last date to have individual premium billing with the carriers?
This is for the record, Steve Fisher, interim director. From my perspective, and working towards the next open enrollment period, my suggestion would be that we work towards, having the carriers move over to the new billing process by the next open enrollment period, which we're talking the November 15th timeframe. Now, I know in their letter they said March 15th, and I'm obviously speaking for, I haven't spoken personally to the small dental carriers either. They'll have to obviously come over to the billing process as well. But we could also work with the carriers like Nevada Co-op, and I know there are other states that have co-ops. We could reach out to those states that have co-ops and find out, how they did the billing, whether they, subcontracted it out to someone to do the billing for them. I mean, there are options that we can really take a look at and move quickly on that for Nevada Co-op, for example. So my suggestion or recommendation is to have the carriers move over by the next open enrollment period, November 15th.
Madam Chairman, Levon Lewis for the record. I think that we need to do this, and we need to do it quickly, and we need to have all of the carriers move at the same time. I thought that Xerox stated a date of May 1st, and that might be the date that we could consider. But I certainly think that we should not piecemeal it and do, a little bit at a time.
For the record, Interim Director, Mr. Fisher, from a technology perspective, on one hand, it is preferable to do one carrier and kind of work through a pilot to work out all of the issues and problems before you roll it out. Now, I do agree with you. After you get one pilot done, then rolling it out to the other carriers all at once, I have no issue with that. But having that one pilot done, making sure that you have all those issues and errors resolved before you roll it out to the other carriers would be a recommendation that I would like to put forward.
No, and to add to that, I think, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Barbara.
I was just going to say, I think part of the issues that we've had in the 834s and the 820s, which is the transfer of information, is there wasn't enough testing done, and we went live too soon without that testing. So I certainly support you in thinking that we need to have that one pilot if we decide to go down this path. Dr. Jameson? We can't hear you.
Florence Jameson for the record. I would agree with the pilot. Since we're going to do a pilot, and I understand Mr. Fisher's recommendation to do one first and work out the kinks, but I would think that since it's going to be just one, maybe we could reconsider that we could even start that pilot, since it's only going to involve one carrier, at an earlier date. But if you feel, and the board feels that May is better to even start the pilot, that would be good. I really am in favor of not having the exchange any longer do the HealthLink Xerox do the billing. I think that if we can move the billing out of this, out of Xerox, we may be able to have Xerox focus their time better on the application process. And I think that the alternative that has been presented is very viable, and I'd love to see it get going as soon as possible. And maybe the pilot could even be started sooner than we thought, so that we can then do everyone as soon as we can.
Lynn Atkins for the record. I just have a question. Yes, if we want to do one as a pilot and then have all the carriers after that, that sounds fine. I'm assuming testing would be done before the pilot, right? I'm assuming the pilot isn't the test. We'd have a test and then the pilot. I'm not a tech person.
This is Judy Fellhaber for the record. Of course, testing would be done. We would actually need to bring the appropriate expertise and skill set together in order to map out the plan for the transition of the services from Xerox to the payer. And a part of that transition plan would include testing, as well as once we implement and take the first file exchanges, 100% review of that first exchange.
Also, would you respond to Dr. Jameson's comment about getting started earlier than May 1st? What are the logistics on that? Would that be the roadmap being created at that point, or what?
And I want to clarify, the May 1st date for being started,
the testing process.
Thank you. That helps clarify it. And I do think that May 1st date came about was suggested through the Carrier Association. So I don't think that date was set in stone by the board or from anyone other than a suggestion in that letter. Do we have any other questions? Ms. Johnstone, do you have any?
No, I was just ready to make a motion when the discussion's over.
Okay. Any further?
Marika, if you do go forward with having a pilot, assuming that goes forward May 1st, when do you think the pilot's going to be done so everybody else can get on board with it?
This is Judy Fellhaber from Xerox. I think in order to be able to answer that accurately, we need to get the proper individuals together, and by next week's board meeting, we can give you an outline of a schedule. I wish I could answer that a little bit better, but
my suggestion would be once the board decides what it wants to do, then let's give Xerox some direction on reporting back to us then. Does that sound reasonable? All right, Ms. Johnstone?
Thank you. I would like to move that we direct Xerox and the carriers to get together and develop a plan to transition the individual billing to the carriers as quickly as possible and is in a concise manner as possible, so that if there is a pilot that is decided upon amongst that group, that pilot be very short and that we get the other carriers on board with the individual billing as quickly as possible. And that Xerox and the carriers present a joint plan to the board. I would ask the carriers to participate in this. Present a joint plan to the board within 10 days in writing, and we can discuss it at the next board meeting, which I don't think is next week. I think it's 2 weeks from now.
Lynn Atkins, second.
All right, I'll open the motion up for discussion. Is there any among board members? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on this. Let's do a roll call vote since Mr. Fisher, if you might help us.
Sure. Ms. Johnstone?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Dr. Jameson?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Ford's not here. Ms. Atkins?
Aye.
And Ms. Campbell?
Aye, the motion passes. I think there's one other issue that we need to deal with, and that is selecting a date in which this must be accomplished. I think we've seen from the carrier, they're saying March 1st, 2015, and our executive director has noted that it probably would be best if it was done before the next open enrollment.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. My motion was intended to have the carriers and Xerox give us their recommendation for the earliest date possible. Without joint information from them, I'm a little uncomfortable personally coming up with a date, but if it was May 1st or sooner, that would be great with me. I hope that the intent comes across strongly from the board that we want this as quickly as possible.
All right, I think that clarifies the intent of your motion. Thank you. All right, I don't think there's anything else that we need to do under this agenda item. Let's move on to agenda item number 6, which is the discussion on the factors to contribute to the 2015 per member per month fee. And Mr. Haycock, are you leading us in that discussion, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Damon Haycock for the record. As Madam Chairwoman specified already, this was to discuss the information recommendations regarding those factors utilized to determine the 2015 per member per month fees that the exchange will charge next year. There is a lot of information, so I will try to go through some of the more drier stuff quickly. We have a requirement to be sustainable by law beginning 2015, that no federal grants under Section 1311 of the Affordable be awarded for state exchange establishment after January 1st, 2015. That's right out of 45 CFR 155.160. However, as you've heard earlier today, we have received information that extensions of current grant funds will be able to move forward into 2015 for the design elements specifically of the exchange, as well as for enrollment assisters, which falls under our EEF program. But in costs such as staff and utilities and other operational costs to keep the lights on at the exchange, those cannot be supported by federal grant funds beginning next year. So the exchange has to set an appropriate per member per month fee for 2015, and the regulation that was passed previously on how those exchange fees would be set uses a specific methodology. For qualified health plans that do not include dental insurance, that the fee must cover the expenses less any other revenues and create an operating reserve. The proposed fees for qualified health plans that include dental insurance coverage must equal the fees for that medical insurance coverage plus the fees for the dental. And the dental contract fees are equal to the average of the premium charge for dental insurance divided by the average premium charge for medical insurance, multiplied by this new fee that we will be setting on April 10th. So, to give some other perspective to this process, the federally facilitated marketplace has developed their fees based on 3.5% of the average qualified health plan premium. So as of this past Saturday, March 22nd, our average QHP premium on the exchange was $378.53 based on 22,448 effectuated enrollments. And so to kind of frame everyone's mindset, if the federally facilitated marketplace was in force here in Nevada, they would be charging the carriers a per member per month fee of $13.25 for a qualified health plan. They would charge an additional 83 cents for a standalone dental plan for a combined $14.08 per member per month for this year. In contrast, we charge $4.95 this year and a 36 cents for standalone dental plans for a combined total of $5.31. And that is so much lower because of our grant funding that was available this year. So to develop that per member per month fee, we must cover our expenses in 2015. And those expenses fall under the same types of categories that traditional business expenses fall under. You have fixed costs and you have variable costs. Now, our fixed costs will include our EEF organizations, They will include staff, rent, operating supplies, assessments, insurance, email, fax, phone, the normal costs of operating a business to include those EEFs, as well as the cost allocation required by state law. So our total 2015 projected fixed costs, and that's including the EEF program, is just over $4.7 million. Variable costs will include that per member per month fee that we are going to have to pay Xerox, as well as any marketing or advertising and appeals. And although marketing and advertising isn't based off of our enrollment, the fact that you can completely eliminate it, I've placed it under the variable category, just to make it less confusing. So for the purposes of this report, the board is going to be presented with those fixed and variable costs that have a significant impact on the per member per month fee development for next year. Primarily, how much to fund the Exchange Enrollment Facilitator Program, to continue or not continue performing individual premium processing, and as you just heard from the motion, that will be a dead issue, and I will gloss right over it. And then if there's going to be any earmarked funds for marketing and advertising for the 2015 calendar year. So additionally, the decisions made on the costs that I just talked about will directly affect the minimum enrollment figures required to remain sustainable in 2015. And what I want to make sure that I state here for the record is that no one here at the Exchange is suggesting that we lower any of the strategic planning or the strategic plans enrollment goals that the board has approved in years past. We are suggesting that we're going to discuss an enrollment floor that is absolutely necessary based on the decisions made today and the discussion that you have today on what we need to keep the lights on, what we need to completely exist in 2015. So while you'll see some lower numbers like 25,000 and 30,000 and 50,000, in no way, shape, or form does Exchange staff nor anyone that we feel in this room has any desire to do anything less than the stated goals in the strategic plan. It's important, though, for us to at least determine the starting dollar amount, the starting number, before we can look at what is going to add to that number or subtract from that number to get your final per member per month fee. And I will try not to bore you with a lot of tables and math that you'll see in this report, so I will be brief. There are baseline costs for 2015. And those baseline costs increase proportionally as enrollment increases. And so, in contrary to what I just earlier said, these baseline costs right here that you see in this first table on page, or this second table on page 3, is that I've initially eliminated the Exchange Enrollment Facilitator Program from this table. Again, that is not what we're recommending, but just to give you a baseline, what is required to keep the lights on. And so as you see right now, we're under 25,000 enrollees, but our initial costs are just under $3.2 million. And if we needed to charge a per member per month fee here at the Exchange, we would be at about $11.17. Those proportionally increase all the way up to $100,000, where the per member per month fee needs to start at about $7.44. And from then on, we need to talk about the other issues that will add or subtract to that per member per month fee. So we start first with Exchange Enrollment Facilitator funding. And as the board has approved previously, that we will continue an Exchange Enrollment Facilitator program through February of 2015. And that funding will be provided to the top 3 performing navigator entities, which was approved earlier today. The discussion then needs to occur, what do we do to fund these individuals or to increase or decrease that funding for this program past February of next year? Because that per member per month fee will be established and locked in for the entire calendar year of 2015. Right now, through the current budget through December of 2014 for the top 3 performing Exchange Enrollment Facilitator entities is approximately $220,000 per month. And this budget covers 51 certified and trained Exchange Enrollment Facilitators. As I mentioned earlier, that the federal government has informed the staff here at the Exchange that enrollment facilitators can be covered by grant funds through the next open enrollment through February 15th, 2015. The figures you're going to see on the next page take that initial $220,000 per month and prorates it, taking out that first 6 weeks of the year. So you get $192,500 per month on average to get through the rest of the year. So moving to page 4, So the board may decide to continue in 2015 with the exact same level of funding that is proposed for the remainder of 2014. And the figure that $220,000 was a combination of, like I said, those top 3 performing vendors where staff has contacted them and requested their budgets through the end of the year. So this is not something that we actually just pulled out of thin air. We got these specifically from those entities. So as you see right there in the very first table on page 4, what it does to that per member per month fee. So at a 30,000 person enrollment, paying $192,500 a month for this program, you see that it will increase the per member per month fee up to almost $17. And it then proportionally drops lower as we get additional enrollment all the way through 100,000 enrollees at just under $9.40. These projections do not include individual billing, nor do they include earmarking any funds for marketing and advertising. So this is just the EEF program as it is going to be funded for the remainder of this year. Now, we have heard at the Consumer Advisory Committee, staff has heard that there is a large desire by committee members and by the board and by board members to potentially not only keep the original funding that we can assign to this program, but see if there's a way to increase it because of all the good things that the navigators and enrollment facilitators do in our community as such, including education and outreach and the other functions that they provide outside of simply hitting the submit button and enrolling folks in health insurance. So the second table there on page 4 breaks out with a series of increases, a 10% increase, a 20% increase, and a 30% increase. And as you see the table, it goes from that $17.63 with a 10% increase at 30,000 folks, all the way down to a $9.60 per member per month fee for that 10% increase. And you'll see how those figures get affected by that increase of exchange enrollment facilitator funding. So to keep this in your mind as you decide what factors are important, understand that your fee will increase proportionally based on how low our enrollment is. The next section on page 5 goes over individual premium processing, which the board has already made a decision, so we are going to move past that. But in essence, that basically is the second table. If you want to include the exchange enrollment facilitator funding at the current level through 2014, you'll see that it's the exact same dollar amount that is the exact same table repeated as at the top of page 4, assuming that individual billing is discontinued, which it now will be.
Let me just add one thing to this part. This is assuming that the carriers take on that role prior to January 1st, 2015. If the plan comes back and that trigger date is out at March, we will need to contemplate some sort of reimbursement to Xerox during that time frame. Am I correct on that?
That is correct, Madam Chair, that we will have to build in an addition of approximately $1.84 per member per month for those folks that are still participating in Xerox's billing process that they send over to the carriers. So we'll have to add that back into our total costs for the year and proportionally spread that out over the rest of the year for our per member per month fee. Continuing on to page 6, we talk about marketing and advertising. The current costs for marketing and advertising for the initial open enrollment since January of this year is approximately $500,000 per month. As you have seen all the ads, heard the television and radio commercials, and seen the billboards, hopefully you understand where we've saturated the market with our current marketing and advertising campaign, and that does come at a cost. This included a significant amount of advertising to educate Nevadans about the website and the Affordable Care Act, which, pending board decision, may not need to be repeated in future years. This does not account for any comeback campaign that is going to be potentially incorporated into a future board report and discussion, I'm sure, by our communications officer recommending that we bring folks back to the website for this next open enrollment. Now, the second paragraph does talk about the potential costs for that second open enrollment from November 14th through February 2015, and they are increased to $750,000 per month. And why did it increase significantly? And honestly, it's due to the time frame over the holiday season and the fact that there is a voting season this fall and winter. So We are going to be competing with all of those other entities for airtime and radio time and print media, and so that naturally the demand increases, and so does the cost for those services. The open enrollment period for 2016, however, should begin on October 15th, 2015, unless they pass another rule and kick it out further, and run through December 7th, 2015, as what is stated in law today. So if the exchange advertises again in calendar year 2015, the holiday season costs may continue to be high, especially in the month of December. So this next part, we talk about continuing marketing and advertising funding at the current proposed levels. And as you can see what it does to the per member per month fee, at that $250,000 per month, again, it's prorated, the amount of money that we have paid, prorated through the year, because that's how you have to develop your per member per month fee. You can't have it go up and down in a cycle. That those costs, starting at about 30,000 enrollees, increase your per member per month fee up to over $25, almost $26. And at 100,000 folks, it drops it down to approximately $12.05. So there are significant costs involved with developing a marketing and advertising campaign, and the initial budgets that were created for the Finances Sustainability Plan were predicated on over 100,000 enrollees. And so all of these numbers, although they appear high, would not have been as high had the enrollment figures been high enough to create such a large reserve that we were hoping to accomplish this year. That, as you can tell, has not happened. And finally, the real question, the real burning issue, again, is that minimum level of enrollment. What does the exchange board feel is comfortable for the minimum level of enrollment that we have to basically live and die on next year? Because if we reduce the per member per month fee based on a higher expected enrollment, and that enrollment does not occur, resources and operational costs will have to be cut. This could be navigators and enrollment facilitators. It could be my job here today. So it could be a lot of other opportunities that we may lose based on the decisions on how the per member per month fee is going to be decided at the next meeting on April 10th at that adoption hearing. So we have currently enrolled, as of Saturday, March 22nd, 22,889 individuals. And based on the factors that I've gone over above in this report, if the exchange wants to remain at or below 3.5% of the 2014 average premiums, the estimated enrollments must be adjusted accordingly. So I'm going to leave it at that point in time. We would break even with the exchange enrollment facilitator funding, the disclusion of individual billing, and the disclusion of advertising costs at about 46,000 enrollees.
Say that again. The exclusion of advertising? So
Correct.
Advertising would go to zero?
Correct. So that would be relying upon that. Well, let's assume that only 46,000 people signed up between November 15th this year and February 15th of next year. At 46,000 people with $13.25 at our current obligations, we could fund the top 3 navigator entities or the exchange enrollment facilitator program at its current level. We would not have the hundreds of thousands of dollars available after that reserve to pay for advertising that following fall. However, based on discussions at the Consumer Advisory Committee with the various navigator entities, they all perform outreach and education, and it depends on how the board wants to allocate where they want that outreach and education to go. Do they want it in airtime and radio time and with commercials and billboards, or with community outreach events that navigators utilize their special population relationships? There's a multitude of things. But what I'm suggesting is that by February 15th of next year, we'll know. And we can increase navigator funding, and we'll know if we'll have the funding for marketing and advertising. But if you lock us into a marketing and advertising per member per month fee now, anything less than $13.25, and we will not have any safety net.
Madam Chair, Lynn Atkins, for the record, I think we should go through each category and try and figure out really what our needs are and what the costs are. I'm concerned about just setting maybe an arbitrary number, trying to stay below the feds. I think we have to see what our realistic expenses are, what our goals are, and our per member per month fee just needs to reflect that.
And I think that's a great idea, Ms. Atkins. I think the one thing that we need to remember, if you go back to page 3, and that baseline cost, at the end of the day, if we develop the costs the way that this report is put together, we would be saying we think our target would be the X number of enrollees. And so let's just say if we feel it's really reasonable that we get out to 100,000 next year, then on each of the next following spreadsheets, we need to stay at that $100,000 level. I mean, we can't move around in that calculation.
This is Lynn. No, that makes sense to me. But my understanding is that, you know, our as we talked about, our projections and our goals of 150,000 for the end of 2015 is still that number. I think we're just sitting here trying to figure out what the baseline is to figure out the per member per month fee. This does not suggest that we only need 60,000 people, and that's the goal of the exchange. The goal of the exchange was to hit 118 by next week, to hit 151 by the end of the year, and those are still the targets we're all working from. This is just a funding mechanism.
Right, and so, I think the other...
But I think, yes, whatever number we pick that we kind of follow sounds like the right number we should pick in each category.
I agree. So do you want to start that discussion? And I think Mr. Haycock can respond to questions and Carrie can help.
I'd love for someone else to start this discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. We can either start with the enrollment figure that we want to stick with and confirm that it's the 151,000 or something different, or we could start with each expense category and talk about what we want to accomplish by that category.
It doesn't matter to me which way you want to get started, so.
I think it might be easier if we start with the costs.
Okay.
So the baseline costs appear like the, as Damon said, keep the lights on, plus a 30-day reserve. So it doesn't seem to me that there's much to be discussed there in that category at this point. Then we've got the exchange enrollment facilitators funding, and it seems the question is continue it, leave it the same funding per month as what we're currently spending, or do some kind of increase. So with that, maybe Ms. Atkins can speak from the Consumer Advisory Committee if they thought that an increase was appropriate, how much of an increase?
I think, as I said earlier, I would anticipate that we're going to need to increase that funding for 2015, assuming we hit our projections. So I would say let's increase it by 30%.
Let me ask a question, Mr. Haycock. Are any of the grants that we can get for the remaining of this calendar year available to use for this EEF program?
The grants that we currently have and can currently ask for will allow us to pay enrollment assisters, which is part of this EEF program, through the next open enrollment period through February 15th of 2015.
So and Ms. Atkins, this is just to add to your comment. If the per member per month fee reflected the funding, the current funding, we could supplement it by 30% with a potential grant?
No, we could, Madam Chair, supplement it if enrollment figures shot up. And so if we looked, and I want to give an example, and Ms. Atkins, please don't hold me to this enrollment figure, but if we looked at the 60,000 enrollees with current funding, we would need to charge a minimum of $11.55. That's at the top of page 4. If that was the desire of the board to charge $11.55 per member per month fee for next year, then if enrollment shot to 100,000, you would see that we would save, or we would gain an additional over $2 per member per month that we can dedicate towards putting that into the EEF program, or putting it into advertising, or putting it into any of the myriad of possibilities to help make the exchange better.
Mr. Haycock, could I ask, in your discussion, can we just use the EEF funding cost just for the area we're talking about? Because I think your total number on the right column has other assumptions that we haven't discussed. So can you, which column are you quoting from right now? Are you the increasing or the continuing?
I went with the simple continuing process that does not include individual.
27 cents. So the 27 cents number.
Yes,
per member per month fee.
Yes, that is correct, Ms. Ekins.
Okay, so if we wanted to just use that 60,000 as the baseline minimum needed to keep the lights on, basically, for purposes of discussion, again, not an enrollment projection, but just a baseline to figure out funding. And if we wanted to increase that by 30% based on my request, it would be 35 cents per member per month to continue the EEF program for 2015. Is that right?
It is, and I hate to be dodgy, Ms. Atkins, but the way that the factors develop these dollar amounts are all proportional, and so I want to make sure that once we understand where the board wants to go, that we put out final proposed per member per month fee dollar amounts to be discussed at the hearing. But yes, to not dodge your question, I think the most important column is the very far right one. And understand that every one of these columns do not include marketing and advertising. They do not include the individual billing function, and they do include a 30-day reserve, as they are all footnoted.
Correct. And no, I understand that. And then also, do these EEF numbers remove January and February 2015, which are going to be covered by grants?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Madam Chair, if we just, for discussion's sakes, work with the recommendation from Ms. Atkins on the 30% and move to the other categories and discuss each of those. We've already talked about the individual premium processing, that would be discontinued for 2015. So that brings us to marketing and advertising. And if I understood it right, we are currently spending approximately, during the peak months of open enrollment, we're currently spending around $500,000 per year or per month. And in 2014, because of the election, it's projected to be $750,000, or I guess staff is coming back to us with a suggestion to increase that to $750,000. So the question for 2015 is what level of spending during the peak months? Other board members might have an opinion about how we approach marketing. I think Dr. Jamison made one suggestion already, or one thought.
I'll just make my comments on it. I know when it comes around to election season, I turn off the advertising on TV. It just, and I think I concur with Dr. Jamison that people get so flooded with these ads that they mentally turn them off. And I think she might be right that we're tossing good money at a bad time.
2015, the elections will be over? Aren't the elections this fall?
They are this fall. But isn't this, oh no, you're not developing it.
Okay. So for the record, Damon Haycock, yes, so again, I want to apologize to the board for creating a reference point that is causing confusion. So yes, we took the current proposed numbers for this year that we've received. So we've received think of it like a bid. We've received bids on how much it's going to cost us to spend on marketing and advertising if we keep the same level of saturation in the market. at about $750,000 a month for those 4 months that cover open enrollment and a little bit of lead up time to it. So that number is just it's just a guesstimate. For 2015, it may be able to return back down to the $500,000 amount, and the board may come back and say, you know what, we're willing to toss $200,000 a month into this process, but no more. It's honestly it's a fiscal decision as it comes to what I have to do, but it's more of a consumer marketing process that the board has to decide on. And then as staff, we will back into the figures and let you know what the net effect is to your per member per month fee.
Okay, this is Lynn. I think I'm just confused where we're supposed to be figuring out here without a lot of other information. It sounds like for 2015, we're going to have open enrollment in January, half of February, and then October and November? 2 months at the end?
October 15th through December 7th is the legal open enrollment unless the feds change it.
Okay, so, obviously we're going to need a lot of advertising probably the month prior. So we're really talking about 5 months of heavy advertising, whether it be television, radio, print, billboards, and all of that. So it would seem to me, for purposes of discussion, that if we use the current figures of what we're doing in 2014 and what we've done as I don't know how else we can have a placeholder. I mean, we haven't had a report recently about which is the most effective use of advertising, where people have come from. I think there's just a lot of information we don't have. And it just seems this matter also has not come back to the Consumer Assistance Committee meeting yet, and it won't, obviously, before we need to vote on this in 2 weeks. So I don't know what else we can all add to the conversation about marketing and advertising other than maybe using what we've been doing. So that's my thought.
So just keeping it at $500,000 per month. That's what the current spend is.
And Madam Chair, for sake of discussion, trying to come up with the first draft on the numbers, this is Leslie Johnson. I would say to stay with the $500,000 for the peak period.
Okay. All right. So if you, Ms. Eaton, you're changing the worksheet right now? Okay. And let's stay at the enrollment of 60,000 just so that we've been staying at that level through this whole discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. I don't know how the spreadsheet is set up, but if we could end up with being able to talk about, with those spending parameters, what the fee would be for 60,000, 100,000, 150,000.
Okay.
We are working on that right now, Ms. Johnstone. We should have that up shortly. Please recognize that $500,000 per month, if you were to take the month before open enrollment, September, October, and November, maybe you take from August, so you take 2 months back, 4 months times $500,000 a month, of course, is $2 million, and then you spread that out over the entire 12 months. So we're kind of backing into what the prorated amount is, and then we'll give it to you very shortly.
I think why don't we take about a 5-minute break so that they can just recheck their figures here a little bit before they give us some numbers. But I want to also direct them, you want that number at 60,000, 100,000, and what was the other number, Ms. Johnstone?
150.
150?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, let's.
Damon's chair in a past life. I don't think that the members down here would be opposed to going to the next item and then coming back to this so that they have a little bit more time to really be comfortable with what they tell us.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda would be the report from Xerox. Are you leading that one?
Xerox will lead theirs, and when they're done, we'll come back.
Okay. All right. Let's just take a break from this agenda item so that they have time to double check their figures and make sure that they've got everything. And we will take the report from Xerox at this point.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Bidiello, again from Xerox, and I'm here with my colleague Judy Fellhaber, who's sitting up in Carson City, and will be supporting and co-delivering the report today. Today we're here to present our plan for managing and in order to make the special enrollment program a success. Just before we start, I wanted to give a couple of key updates to you. Our enrollment this week, and I apologize, is a correction from the posted report yesterday. The number of confirmed plan choices who have paid is 23,449, and there are 13,874 confirmed plan choices that still need to pay. We're currently working with those families and individuals to outreach them and help them complete the payment process. This weekend, there's a large enrollment fair. Xerox is committing over 40 CSRs to go sit at those enrollment fairs, both in Las Vegas and in Reno, to support the efforts. And our third-party vendor partner has begun meeting with the carriers in order to complete the reconciliation of membership between both of our systems. Immediately following last week's board decision to enact the special enrollment period, our systems development team and operations teams began working to develop a plan. We've worked directly with the exchange to develop that plan and have reached out to some of the key brokers and EEFs in order to support the process. Today, we're also prepared, and this will be led by Judy Fellhaber, to discuss the numbers that you requested last week and are prepared to provide revised information. First, I'd like to start off by talking about what will actually happen on 4/1 when open enrollment ends, and how the general public coming into the website, how the system will react. So for new individuals who are wishing to apply, if they wish to apply for Medicaid or CHIP, they will still be able to come in and apply through the website as expected. Any consumers who have qualifying life events will also be able to come in and apply. There's a special process that we'll discuss around them, as well as consumers who are eligible for the special enrollment period will also be able to come into the website and complete the process that they originally had started. For Medicaid and CHIP enrollees, once their application is completed and eligibility is determined in our system, we will transfer that information over to DWSS within 72 hours to complete the process.
Greg, this is Judy Fellhaber. Would you like to direct everyone to the page that you're on? I'm seeing just a bit of confusion here. Thank you.
Certainly. For those of you who are following along on the presentation, it's page number 6 in the presentation. For those consumers who have applied for a qualifying life event, they will contact the call center in order to prove that they have a qualifying life event, and for us, our staff, to assist them with completing the shopping. Going on to slide number 7, slide number 7. The special, just to talk briefly about the overall special enrollment strategy. Anyone with a qualifying, anybody who's interested in completing the process for a qualifying health plan during the special enrollment period. The special enrollment period, again, will start on April 1st and run through May 31st. This applies to consumers who are already known to Nevada HealthLink and have either not completed the process prior to 3/31 and do not have coverage, or consumers who have coverage but experience an error in the process. Enrollment will be able to be completed by either the consumer, a broker, the EEFs, or our staff. and enrollment will be prospective, starting either 5/1, 6/1, or 7/1, depending on when they complete the application process. Consumers will contact the call center in order to request special information, and I'm on slide 8 now. On a case by
we would break even with the exchange enrollment facilitator funding, the disclusion of individual billing, and the disclusion of advertising costs at about 46,000 enrollees.
Say that again. The exclusion of advertising? So
Correct.
Advertising would go to zero?
Correct. So that would be relying upon that. Well, let's assume that only 46,000 people signed up between November 15th this year and February 15th of next year. At 46,000 people with $13.25 at our current obligations, we could fund the top 3 Navigator entities or the Exchange Enrollment Facilitator program at its current level. We would not have the hundreds of thousands of dollars available after that reserve to pay for advertising that following fall. However, based on discussions at the Consumer Advisory Committee with the various Navigator entities, they all perform outreach and education, and it depends on how the board wants to allocate where they want that outreach and education to go. Do they want it in airtime and radio time and with commercials and billboards, or with community outreach events that navigators utilize their special population relationships? There's a multitude of things. But what I'm suggesting is that by February 15th of next year, we'll know. And we can increase Navigator funding, and we'll know if we'll have the funding for marketing and advertising. But if you lock us into a marketing and advertising per member per month fee now, anything less than $13.25, and we will not have any safety net.
Madam Chair, Lynn Atkins for the record. I think we should go through each category and try and figure out really what our needs are and what the costs are. I'm concerned about just setting maybe an arbitrary number, trying to stay below the feds. I think we have to see what our realistic expenses are, what our goals are, and our per member per month fee just needs to reflect that.
And I think that's a great idea, Ms. Atkins. I think the one thing that we need to remember, if you go back to page 3, and that baseline cost, at the end of the day, if we develop the costs the way that this report is put together, we would be saying we think our target would be the X number of enrollees. And so let's just say if we feel it's really reasonable that we get out to 100,000 next year, then on each of the next following spreadsheets, we need to stay at that $100,000 level. I mean, we can't move around in that calculation.
This is Lynn. No, that makes sense to me. But my understanding is that, our as we talked about, our projections and our goals of 150,000 for the end of 2015 is still that number. I think we're just sitting here trying to figure out what the baseline is to figure out the per member per month fee. This does not suggest that we only need 60,000 people, and that's the goal of the exchange. The goal of the exchange was to hit 118 by next week, to hit 151 by the end of the year, and those are still the targets we're all working from. This is just a funding mechanism.
Right, and so, I think the other...
But I think, yes, whatever number we pick that we kind of follow sounds like the right number we should pick in each category.
I agree. So do you want to start that discussion? And I think Mr. Haycock can respond to questions and Carrie can help.
I'd love for someone else to start this discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. We can either start with the enrollment figure that we want to stick with and confirm that it's the 151,000 or something different, or we could start with each expense category and talk about what we want to accomplish by that category.
It doesn't matter to me which way you want to get started, so
I think it might be easier if we start with the costs.
Okay.
Categories. So the baseline costs appear like as Damon said, keep the lights on, plus a 30-day reserve. So it doesn't seem to me that there's much to be discussed there in that category at this point. Then we've got the exchange enrollment facilitators funding, and it seems the question is continue it, leave it the same funding per month as what we're currently spending, or do some kind of increase. So with that, maybe Ms. Atkins can speak from the Consumer Advisory Committee if they thought that an increase was appropriate, how much of an increase?
I think, as I said earlier, I would anticipate that we're going to need to increase that funding for 2015, assuming we hit our projections. So I would say let's increase it by 30%.
Let me ask a question, Mr. Haycock. Are any of the grants that we can get for the remaining of this calendar year available to use for this EEF program?
The grants that we currently have and can currently ask for will allow us to pay enrollment assisters, which is part of this EEF program, through the next open enrollment period through February 15th of 2015.
So and Ms. Atkins, this is just to add to your comment. If the per member per month fee reflected the funding, the current funding, we could supplement it by 30% with a potential grant?
No, we could, Madam Chair, supplement it if enrollment figures shot up. And so if we looked, and I want to give an example, and Ms. Atkins, please don't hold me to this enrollment figure, but if we looked at the 60,000 enrollees with current funding, we would need to charge a minimum of $11.55. That's at the top of page 4. If that was the desire of the board to charge $11.55 per member per month fee for next year, then if enrollment shot to 100,000, you would see that we would save, or we would gain an additional over $2 per member per month that we can dedicate towards putting that into the EEF program, or putting it into advertising, or putting it into any of the myriad of possibilities to help make the exchange better.
Mr. Haycock, could I ask, in your discussion, can we just use the EEF funding cost just for the area we're talking about? Because I think your total number on the right column has other assumptions that we haven't discussed. So can you, which column are you quoting from right now? Are you the increasing or the continuing?
I went with the simple continuing process that does not include individual.
27 cents. So the 27 cents number.
Yes,
per member per month.
Yes, that is correct, Ms. Atkins.
Okay, so if we wanted to just use that 60,000 as the baseline minimum needed to keep the lights on, basically, for purposes of discussion, again, not an enrollment projection, but just a baseline to figure out funding. And if we wanted to increase that by 30% based on my request, it would be 35 cents per member per month to continue the EEF program for 2015. Is that right?
It is, and I hate to be dodgy, Ms. Atkins, but the way that the factors develop, these dollar amounts are all proportional, and so I want to make sure that once we understand where the board wants to go, that we put out final proposed per member per month fee dollar amounts to be discussed at the hearing. But yes, to not dodge your question, I think the most important column is the very far right one. And understand that every one of these columns do not include marketing and advertising. They do not include the individual billing function, and they do include a 30-day reserve, as they are all footnoted.
Correct. And no, I understand that. And then also, do these EEF numbers remove January and February 2015, which are going to be covered by grants?
Yes, ma'am.
So Madam Chair, if we just, for discussion's sakes, work with the recommendation from Ms. Atkins on the 30% and move to the other categories and discuss each of those. We've already talked about the individual premium processing, that would be discontinued for 2015. So that brings us to marketing and advertising. And if I understood it right, we are currently spending approximately, during the peak months of open enrollment, we're currently spending around $500,000 per year or per month. And in 2014, because of the election, it's projected to be $750,000, or I guess staff is coming back to us with a suggestion to increase that to $750,000. So the question for 2015 is what level of spending during the peak months? Other board members might have an opinion about how we approach marketing. I think Dr. Jamison made one suggestion already, or one thought.
I'll just make my comments on it. I know when it comes around to election season, I turn off the advertising on TV. It just, and I think I concur with Dr. Jamison that people get so flooded with these ads that they mentally turn them off. And I think she might be right that we're tossing good money at a bad time.
2015, the elections will be over. Aren't the elections this fall?
They are this fall. But isn't this, oh no, you're not developing it.
Okay. So for the record, Damon Haycock. Yeah, so again, I want to apologize to the board for creating a reference point that is causing confusion. So yes, we took the current proposed numbers for this year that we've received. So we've received think of it like a bid. We've received bids on how much it's going to cost us to spend on marketing and advertising if we keep the same level of saturation in the market at about $750,000 a month for those 4 months that cover open enrollment and a little bit of lead up time to it. So that number is just it's just a guesstimate. For 2015, it may be able to return back down to the $500,000 amount. And the board may come back and say, you know what, we're willing to toss $200,000 a month into this process, but no more. It's honestly, it's a fiscal decision as it comes to what I have to do, but it's more of a consumer marketing process that the board has to decide on. And then as staff, we will back into the figures and let you know what the net effect is to your per member per month fee.
Okay, this is Lynn. I think I'm just confused where we're supposed to be figuring out here without a lot of other information. It sounds like for 2015, we're going to have open enrollment in January, half of February, and then October and November? 2 months at the end?
October 15th through December 7th is the legal open enrollment unless the feds change it.
Okay, so, obviously we're going to need a lot of advertising probably the month prior. So we're really talking about 5 months of heavy advertising, whether it be television, radio, print, billboards, and all of that. So it would seem to me, for purposes of discussion, that if we use the current figures of what we're doing in 2014 and what we've done as I don't know how else we can have a placeholder. I mean, we haven't had a report recently about which is the most effective use of advertising, where people have come from. I think there's just a lot of information we don't have. And it just seems this matter also has not come back to the Consumer Assistance Committee meeting yet, and it won't, obviously, before we need to vote on this in 2 weeks. So I don't know what else we can all add to the conversation about marketing and advertising other than maybe using what we've been doing. So that's my thought.
So just keeping it at $500,000 per month. That's what the current spend is.
And Madam Chair, for sake of discussion, trying to come up with the first draft on the numbers, this is Leslie Johnson. I would say to stay with the $500,000 for the peak
Okay. All right. So if you, Ms. Eaton, you're changing the worksheet right now? Okay. And let's stay at the enrollment of 60,000 just so that we've been staying at that level through this whole discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. I don't know how the spreadsheet is set up, but if we could end up with being able to talk about, with those spending parameters, what the fee would be for 60,000, 100,000, 150,000.
Okay.
We are working on that right now, Ms. Johnstone. We should have that up shortly. Please recognize that $500,000 per month, if you were to take the month before open enrollment, September, October, and November, maybe you take from August, so you take 2 months back, 4 months times $500,000 a month, of course, is $2 million, and then you spread that out over the entire 12 months. So we're kind of backing into what the prorated amount is, and then we'll give it to you very shortly.
I think why don't we take about a 5-minute break so that they can just recheck their figures here a little bit before they give us some numbers. But I want to also direct them, you want that number at 60,000, 100,000, and what was the other number, Ms. Johnstone?
150.
150?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, let's.
Damon's chair in a past life. I don't think that the members down here would be opposed to going to the next item and then coming back to this so that they have a little bit more time to really be comfortable with what they tell us.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda would be the report from Xerox. Are you leading that one?
Xerox will leave theirs, and when they're done, we'll come back.
Okay. All right. Let's just take a break from this agenda item so that they have time to double check their figures and make sure that they've got everything. And we will take the report from Xerox at this point.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Bidiello, again from Xerox, and I'm here with my colleague, Judy Fellhaber, who's sitting up in Carson City, and will be supporting and co-delivering the report today. Today, we're here to present our plan for managing and in order to make the special enrollment program a success. Just before we start, I wanted to give a couple of key updates to you. Our enrollment this week, and I apologize, is a correction from the posted report yesterday. The number of confirmed plan choices who have paid is 23,449, and there are 13,874 confirmed plan choices that still need to pay. We're currently working with those families and individuals to outreach them and help them complete the payment process. This weekend, there's a large enrollment fair. Xerox is committing over 40 CSRs to go sit at those enrollment fairs, both in Las Vegas and in Reno, to support the efforts. And our third-party vendor partner has begun meeting with the carriers in order to complete the reconciliation of membership between both of our systems. Immediately following last week's board decision to enact the special enrollment period, our systems development team and operations teams began working to develop a plan. We've worked directly with the exchange to develop that plan and have reached out to some of the key brokers and EEFs in order to support the process. Today, we're also prepared, and this will be led by Judy Fellhaber, to discuss the numbers that you requested last week and are prepared to provide revised information. First, I'd like to start off by talking about what will actually happen on 4/1 when open enrollment ends, and how the general public coming into the website, how how the system will react. So for new individuals who are wishing to apply, if they wish to apply for Medicaid or CHIP, they will still be able to come in and apply through the website as expected. Any consumers who have qualifying life events will also be able to come in and apply. There's a special process that we'll discuss around them, as well as consumers who are eligible for the special enrollment period will also be able to come into the website and complete the process that they originally had started. For Medicaid and CHIP enrollees, once their application is completed and eligibility is determined in our system, we will transfer that information over to DWSS within 72 hours to complete the process.
Greg, this is Judy Fellhaber. Would you like to direct everyone to the page that you're on? I'm seeing just a bit of confusion here. Thank you.
Certainly. For those of you who are following along on the presentation, it's page number 6 in the presentation. For those consumers who have applied for a qualifying life event, they will contact the call center in order to prove that they have a qualifying life event, and for us, our staff, to assist them with completing the shopping. Going on to slide number 7, slide number 7. The special, just to talk briefly about the overall special enrollment strategy. Anyone with a qualifying, anybody who's interested in completing the process for a qualifying health plan during the special enrollment period. The special enrollment period, again, will start on April 1st and run through May 31st. This applies to consumers who are already known to Nevada HealthLink and have either not completed the process prior to 3/31 and do not have coverage, or consumers who have coverage but experience an error in the process. Enrollment will be able to be completed by either the consumer, a broker, the EEFs, or our staff. And enrollment will be prospective, starting either 5/1, 6/1, or 7/1, depending on when they complete the application process. Consumers will contact the call center in order to request special information, and I'm on slide 8 now. On a case by based on going through and receiving an eligibility determination that they were likely eligible for Medicaid. If once Medicaid completes the process, if there's any additional information that they receive that makes them ineligible for Medicaid, we will assist those consumers with completing the process for a qualified health plan. As part of the strategy, the exchange and Xerox met with the navigators and key brokers this past week to define how the process is going to work. Initially, the exchange is going to send out an email to all of the appointed brokers to confirm that they wish to participate in the special enrollment period. Upon receiving a positive response back from those individual brokers, the exchange will make Xerox aware of which brokers are going to participate. Xerox will generate a list of applicants to each of the brokers and the EEFs based on the defined enrollment target groups. One of the issues that we are aware of is that for those consumers who did previously get stuck, there's been an overall concern about having to go in and re-enter the entire application from start. We have been working with our development team since last week to identify a process to refresh those existing accounts and repopulate the information so that way consumers will not have to go through and re-enter everything from the beginning. We're still working on that process. We plan to begin testing that today, and in advance to be ready for 4/1. The broker line will continue to be available to assist brokers and EEFs, as well as we will be ready to assist applicants with completing the application over the phone as required. The brokers and EEFs will use the list that we provide to them to do outreach to the consumers and assist them in completing the overall process. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Fellhaber, who will provide more information regarding the target populations. Ms. Fellhaber?
Thank you, Greg. For the record, this is Judy Fellhaber, and I'm on slide 10. We have had several requests from these hearings to analyze the population of individuals who have attempted to enroll throughout the Nevada Exchange web portal. So at this point, what we've done, we've got 3 slides that will walk you through the entire population from day 1. We will then convert that information into what we feel is an opportunity for this special enrollment period, and then end with showing you the support that we have available and that we have organized in order to convert those members and those applications into enrollees. So on slide 10 at the top, we start with the entire population of 346,772. I'm going to walk you through, if you look at the chart, the second column, the top indicates gross, and those are gross counts. So we start with the 346. Of that population, we had 64,536 applicants who actually did not apply. And what those are head of household, where they may only be applying for the dependents. Therefore, that leaves us with 282,236 eligibility determinations. 55% of those were Medicaid and CHIP applications, or roughly 154,000. There are 13,874 currently in the status of plan selected, but they have not made a payment. We then drop down to the no plan selected with APTC, and I will indicate that this $64,000 number also includes the people that have actively enrolled, and I'll show you where we pull that out. So that really encompasses the entire universe of qualified health plan individuals eligible for an APTC. The next line, the 39,000, that is qualified health plan that are not eligible for APTC who attempted to apply through the system, is 39,861. And then finally, we have 9,851 that were not eligible, things like they may have employer coverage, incarceration, or other rules. So at the end, we've accounted for the entire population of 346, which brings us to 0. Now, if you draw your attention to the middle of the page, you'll see 3 lines that go horizontally with counts. And this is our target population. With these populations, we're going to pull out the duplicate records, and you see that in the column labeled duplicate. When the duplicate's out, we now have a population of 13,874 in the plan with no pay. Obviously, no one has paid there, and if you follow across, our opportunity in that group is to convert 13,874 members into actively enrolled participants. Using the same formula with the qualified health plans, we now have a net of 50,000 individuals who did qualify for APTC. 19,321 are active today, leaving us 31,037 that we can market through the special enrollment period. The same math being applied, we have 32,094 that have applied, have not selected a plan, and do not qualify for APTC, giving our universe of opportunities a 77,005 count where we can begin the special enrollment process. If you'd like to move to slide 11, we took that 77,005 and analyzed it for opportunities. And we need to, at this point, point out that those are individuals and do not represent the number of applications. The Nevada SSHIX has reported to us there's a 1.7 conversion factor, meaning for each application, we have approximately 1.7 individual members. So when you look at the 77,005, the estimated applications that would need to be processed to convert the people currently in the system ranges from 17,000 or roughly 18,000 to 44,274. And I'll show you how we get there. If we drop down to the chart, on the left-hand side, you see target populations. We've already discussed the plan selected and no pay. There's 13,874. If you move to the right, you see there's a high category and a medium and a low. What we did is we took the probability for each of those populations for conversion, opportunities, and then we net that amount. So for people who have actually applied, submitted, and simply haven't paid on a high level, we anticipate a 95% conversion or 13,180. For those that are eligible for APTC, we do see that we have a higher degree of success for those individuals, and so we give that an 80% probability on the high end, or 24,830. Without APTC, those individuals who are paying the full freight, a conversion factor of 60%. So therefore, if we had great results working with our brokers and our EEFs, we are looking at a current inventory of 77,005, turning into an additional 57,266 members. Now, throughout this period, we know that we will have new applicants. So we've added a line here, new applicants, and put in 40,000. We're currently averaging somewhere between 12 and 15,000 applications a month. We anticipate that will increase with this new special enrollment period. But we also understand that approximately 55% of those are Medicaid eligible. So therefore, on the high end, if anyone coming in with a new application in the special enrollment period, if we converted those, we would have an additional 18,000. Using this chart, you can see that the total membership increase could be anticipated at approximately 75,000 members, and on the low end, you see 30,561. When we convert that to the number of applications we have to touch, the range is 17,977 up to 44,274. What the next slide will be able to depict to you on slide 12 is taking those applications, and we've heard about service issues throughout this contract. We've taken the current staffing and the broker and the member support and now applied that to our high, medium, and low levels of activity. By joining forces, we really believe that Xerox, the brokers, and the EEFs will be able to successfully manage all of this activity. The application processing capacity, which is on the left-hand side, what we've done is we've taken the Xerox staff, and if we segregate that staff and allow it to accommodate the various activities, we would apply 84 staff members to applications. Given our current statistics and performance throughout the 60-day period, the capacity for those 84 is 60,707. Now again, if we don't have applications and we have more calls, we would allocate the staffing appropriately. This is to show you that we do have capacity. From the broker's perspective, the 1,000 number represents about 10% of the population and 5 applications a month from those brokers. So it's a very low and conservative number for them. And of course, the EEFs, 51 of those, they gave us their production at 4 per day and 40 hours a week, and that they could contribute 8,500 as far as their capacity. When we pulled in the high, medium, and low numbers from the others, if you take the capacity of 79,475 at the high range, in order to accommodate the current known population, we would have to process 44,274 applications, giving us an excess of 35,000. And you can continue down the chart to see that regardless of the results, we do have excess capacity on the application side. Now, to accompany that, we have to anticipate that the phone calls are going to either remain steady, we have increased in the month of March, or increase proportionately for the enrollment. When we look at the member call capacity, they would currently be a revolving staff of 100. The calls per week, based on the current statistics that they would be able to manage, would be roughly 26,000. Over the life of the project, we would estimate that we would come in around 214,000 calls. When we look at the estimates, I'll draw your attention to the bottom of the chart where you see March average. The 12,400 number is the average calls that we're getting per week today. We would anticipate that would increase. So as you work up the chart, you also see at a 20% increase is 14,008. At a 30% increase, 16,129. In each of those scenarios, we continue to have excess capacity for the phone calls themselves. So with that, if you have questions regarding the numbers, how we got there, I'd be more than happy to entertain questions.
Lawrence Jameson?
Is that you, Dr. Jameson?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Not to be a pessimist, but a question on, did you factor in what losses we may have? In other words, those people that may shift away due to employee benefits, or those people who found that even the bronze plan with the high premiums and high deductible, that they need to reach, or medication cost, that they may fall away. Have we looked at anything about what we may lose?
The numbers that are represented in these three charts are actually representing the current population to convert into active contracts. This is not intended to be an entire enrollment. This does not include the 75,000 or the 30,000 number does not include the 23,000 actively enrolled. But if you would like us to make that consideration, we could certainly take that back and give some estimates back to the board.
Madam Chair, Lynn Atkins?
Yes.
So I have lots of questions, but I guess my first big picture question is, all of these numbers are predicated on the website working. Every single one of these. Because what we heard today at in public comment, people still are having challenges. We're still hearing it from brokers. I have a coworker who was reluctant to tell me that her Spanish-only speaking parents who had sent in a paper application back in December are still getting the runaround. And the latest discussion is all the information has just vanished. And once they gave it again verbally over the phone, sorry, we have an error message, and someone will get back to you. These problems are never ending. They are continuing. And I just think, as all of it, the numbers look great on paper. This just isn't reality, and all of this is predicated on that website working. And so I'm glad you brought a plan. I'm glad brokers, all of that is good, and we needed to do that, and I'm not suggesting that that's not right, but is someone here saying, yes, as of, gosh, it's already what, March 25th or 6th? That we are not going to be hearing from people week after week after week that they cannot get enrolled. I'd love a response.
This is Greg Bidiello for the record again. And Ms. Atkins, you're correct. People are still experiencing issues. And we are trying to work with those individuals who do experience the issues. However, we are making progress. We've also heard from brokers and navigators that even though some are experiencing issues, other people are able to get through the process from beginning to end without issues. We are making updates to the system every week. We will continue to do so after 3/31 and are doing everything possible to improve the experience for members.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone.
Go ahead.
What is the communication plan to bring people back to the website to get them to try to finish their application?
Ms. Johnson, this is Greg Bidiello again for the record. We will, again, be providing the brokers and navigators with the list of individuals for them to reach out to. We're working with the exchange to identify letters and email campaigns as well as doing outbound phone calls to the target populations.
Thank you. One more time, I never did see the communication that went out the last time there was an outreach program, so I certainly hope that a little bit more information provided to the board, because we get asked questions too about what this communication plan is. In terms of the list to the brokers and the navigators, is that just of the individuals that they tried to enroll? It's not some random list of people in the website that attempted to enter the website. I mean, they belong to those brokers, don't they?
So I'm going to answer that twofold. We are making every attempt for those individuals who have gone to a specific broker to ensure that we have them on the list and that gets sent to that broker. But in addition, we are part of using the community, EEFs and the brokers, is to identify where those brokers and navigators are located and bump those zip codes up against our list of known individuals who are out there and provide them with additional folks to pursue and try to encourage to bring back in.
And this might be for the lawyers in the room. There's no issue about giving these names to brokers that from the exchange in terms of the individual's privacy submitted an application.
Madam Chair, this is Lynn Atkins. I think there's issues that need to be discussed. As I had said earlier, I am glad, I think our committee asked Xerox to work with the navigators and brokers about trying to partner together and find a way to use all the resources. I don't know that that piece is the right piece. I am concerned about confidentiality. I believe Covered California went and did this back in maybe October or November, and it was a huge consumer protection issue. There's some articles about that. So I think that piece of it needs to be reevaluated and looked at. Whether or not those folks can get a postcard or a letter and say, these are the brokers or navigators in your area, please call them. That might be a better, more confidential way to do it. I just think folks who signed up through the website, kind of never heard anything, and all of a sudden their name gets sent to, somebody, I think is probably not the best way to go. So those are my comments on that issue.
Judy Fellhaber for the record. Ms. Atkins, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I also believe that I'm getting a lot of feedback. I also believe that by giving the information to the consumer to get them to a local broker or EEF may feel a little more like hand-holding as opposed to going out and just trying to navigate a system that is off in the distance. So we're certainly planning on that type of distribution.
I have a question, and I don't know whether you or Greg want to answer it. And again, I hope you succeed. The numbers look good. On the plan on paper looks good. But I agree with Ms. Atkins that the enrollment process through the web portal has been cumbersome at the very least. I continue to get emails from the carriers. Let's assume that your high numbers come forward and that information is being transferred over to the carriers. I am hearing from them the 834s still are not coming across clearly to them. And if you do hit the maximum numbers here, which I hope you do, talk to me about how that process with the carriers and the 834 is being cured.
This is Judy Fellhaber. Actually, we had a meeting with the carriers yesterday, as we do every week. There is a testing schedule. Many of the issues that are addressed are in process to be resolved. Many are going to be resolved by the end of this month and certainly throughout April. And that involves a clean file going to the carriers, as well as including terminations changes and all of the modifications to that file. I will add to that transitioning the premium payment to the carriers will also simplify all of the data that is going back and forth. The 834 will enroll the member. The 820 includes the payments. We do have an issue. One of the carriers has actually collected 14,000 payments that we now have to put back into our system because we're showing delinquent on the member. So the carriers have been great to work with in getting these issues resolved. So there's certain items on both sides of the table that we certainly are addressing for the members. But the 834 and the 820 are top notch. And as soon as the 834 and the reconciliation process is in, I think you'll see better performance. 2 of the carriers, we have finished a total enrollment and payment reconciliation on the medical side. The other carriers are in process, and the dentals are being scheduled now. And again, that was all communicated to them yesterday.
And I'd just like to add one more thing to what Ms. Fellhaber said. This is Greg Vidiello. We are, again, working with our independent third-party vendor who's coming in, has been sitting on the carrier calls over the last 2 weeks, and has begun outreaching to those carriers to meet with them individually to go through and reconcile the 834 membership between both of our systems.
Do we have any other questions from board members? Yes.
This is Leslie Johnstone. I just have one last question. The slide 11, can you go through what new applicants is again?
Certainly. This is Judy Fellhaber. New applicants are people who are coming into the program. The top part of the chart is breaking down those individuals that attempted to apply before March 31st or currently in our system. Throughout April and May, there will be other individuals with qualifying life events and items that are coming into the system that could be enrolling. So we have to accommodate for those as well. We anticipate the majority of those would be the changes, and as we have seen, 55% of those are going back to Medicaid.
Was there one follow-up question? Was there a basis for this 40,000? That just sounds a little high.
The 40,000 may be a bit high, but it is also diluted significantly by what would not be in the qualified health plan. So it's not significantly impacting the applications that we would have to process for that. But we want to be aware of those. Actually, we anticipate about 22 to 23,000 applications coming through for Medicaid. That is not in the excess count on slide 12. The excess is for QHP, but as you can see, the excess far surpasses the 22,000 for Medicaid. It was based on a lot of our activity in the past few months. Only having 3 months, I have to tell you that the reason that's segregated out is it had a lot of assumptions around it. So that's a very good question.
Alexia Emmerman for the record. I wanted to double check because I didn't see it in here. On page 2, you're talking about enrollment eligibility, 23,449 confirmed plan choices paid. Does that mean that those have been confirmed with the carriers? There are no pens or nothing like that? Those are all people who actually have been enrolled with the carriers, and that's done?
Those are individuals that have been enrolled with the carriers.
Madam Chair, Lynn Atkins.
Go ahead.
One comment. First of all, I think on slide 7, and just to make sure we're all on using the right dates, the special enrollment period, I believe, will end May 30th. I believe the statute is 60 days. Day 1 should be April 1. So just want to make sure everyone's working from the same date. So special enrollment period should end May 30th. And then I have 2 questions on the population analysis on page 10. Aren't there a group of people, not knowing how many, that started the application but did not get an eligibility determination? And if so, I don't see them anywhere on this chart. I thought we kept getting numbers about that, and they seem to have disappeared.
When you're... This is Greg Vidiello again. Those individuals are... and maybe they weren't previously represented correctly, those individuals who I believe you're referring to are those who applied for somebody, but they weren't actually applying for themselves. And so that was represented as that 60,000 number.
So I'm going to look, I think, talking, I thought we had a large number of people that started an application. Does anyone else, either on the board or anyone else remember this, that they started an application but did not get an eligibility determination? And because this suggests that that's nobody, that nobody did the identification verification, got a password, went in, started entering information, and then got kicked out of the system. We're having problems entering income and just kind of gave up. I can't imagine that there are 0 of those.
This is... Greg, this is Judy Fellhaber. Many of those individuals that had gone into the system and attempted to enroll then actually had to go back into the system and ended up creating a duplicate record. So most of those would be represented in your duplicate counts below with the 14,000 and the 3,600 if we are moving forward with that category. The other duplicate records would be in the eligibility determinations. They would have dropped into there and then dropped out on the duplicate listing.
I'm not sure what I understand if we are going forward with that item. I don't think I understand. I think I need I don't understand. Are there people, yes or no, are there people who started the application and did not get an eligibility determination? I have one gentleman here in the audience raising his hand saying, yes, it's me. I've got all these brokers saying, yes, they've got people that started the application but never got an eligibility determination.
This is Judy, and I put this.
So I believe what Ms. Fellhaber is indicating is that for the individuals who are represented in those plan accounts where there were duplicates, that many of those individuals have also created new accounts and therefore are counted in the target populations. Again, there are people that will contact us that didn't get through the process, and we're prepared to assist those people as well. Not prepared to give you, any other number at this point. Would be happy to do a follow-up and provide you that information separate from the board meeting.
Well, I think we need that information ASAP because my understanding, and I'm getting, again, verification from this, at the very beginning, or I shouldn't say the very beginning, during a lot of this, there was a sign and submit problem. And so when people kind of got through everything and they clicked sign and submit, it popped up error. And all of those, maybe some of those people went back in. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure I know the brokers have a lot of the.
Lynn, we need to have you use a different mic.
So I am assuming that we have lots of people, even if it's one, that person falls within the special enrollment section. Every single person who attempted to enroll and get health insurance between October 1 and March 31 is part of our special enrollment group and needs to be given an opportunity to come back. So we have got to know, and Xerox has got to tell us who those folks are so we can get the word out to them as well. So we need that number ASAP. I have one other question about the people who have not paid. Are we able to tell how many of those scheduled payments, or are we not?
This is Judy, and we can get that information.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Lynn, for the record, this is. Greg, is your. Hey, Lynn, this is. I don't know if I can.
My microphone
I'm
is
not
off,
speaking. Oh, is someone either asking a question or trying to answer something?
We're getting a lot of feedback here, so give us just a second.
All our mics are off.
Lynn, you might be referring to, this is Steve, we get weekly activity status reports with numbers, and the first number says application started, and then it's broken down from there with eligibility determinations. And so I think that's probably the question you're asking, that number of applications, as opposed to number of people who started an application but have not yet gotten an eligibility determination. Is that your question?
Yes, Mr. Fisher, thank you very much. All of those people have been dropped off of all of these analyses.
Ms. Atkins, this is Judy Fellhaber. We'll get that information for you.
Lynn, if we do just a quick thing on the thing that Ms. Rich sent out on March 24th, it looks like that might be a group of maybe 50,000.
And that's probably not duped.
There's probably a ton of duplicates in there, but I think it shows that applications started 387,000 and the number of eligibility determinations is 337,000. So I think it's that delta that she's asking about.
We will regroup the numbers and bring them back in that format so it gives her a mapping from the 387. But
thank you, and I'd like these people, not these numbers, but these people considered in the analysis.
Do we have any other questions? All right. In the next report that you submit to us, I think you've heard some of the things we want in it. I would like an update on the 834 progress and the exchange of data to the carriers as well. And I guess since we're continuing with the 820 for a short period of time or a period of time, we need an update on that as well. So.
This is Greg Vidiello.
All right, are we ready to go back to the per member per month fee analysis?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Vidiello had one, I think either question or comment, and I had one other just request.
Okay.
This is Greg Vidiello again for the record. Ms. Campbell, we will come prepared with that information for the next board meeting, along with the additional information that was requested here. Again, since the special enrollment
They qualify for a qualifying life event, something very visible on the front page of the website.
Good comment.
So for the record, again, Damon Haycock. For Ms. Johnstone, you asked for some specific parameters, and we have those figures for you right now. This is under the assumption that we will have that $500,000 per month for advertising over that 4-month period, leading up to and through the open enrollment period that starts on October 15th next year. That total amount is about $2 million for that time period. And we broke it down at 60,000 enrollees, 100,000 enrollees, and 150,000 enrollees. We also wanted to ensure that the 30% increase to the exchange enrollment facilitator program, as Ms. Atkins has requested, is also within these total figures that I'm about to tell you. So at the lower end of the spectrum, at the 60,000 enrollees, the approximate per member per month fee would be $15.36. Once we hit 100,000 enrollees, it drops down to $11.68. And at 150,000 enrollees, it is at $9.84. Just to give a reference point, in order to hit a $13.25 equalization with the federally facilitated marketplace, you need about 78,000 folks to enroll in 2015 with those two parameters that were requested.
And again, these numbers do not reflect any individual billing component. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that is correct. If there is an individual billing component, either through next year or through part of next year, we will have to increase this accordingly or find cost savings in our budget to accommodate.
Okay. What I would request then is that you closely follow the development between the carriers and Xerox on when that target date is. And if it extends into 2015 at all, that we have to develop at least some coverage for that billing.
Of course, Madam Chair.
Leslie, does that answer your question?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's exactly what I was hoping to receive back.
Do any of the board members have any other questions for Mr. Haycock or for Ms. Eaton to try and put together in a calculation quickly? If not, then we will move into an adoption hearing at our next formally scheduled, at our normally scheduled board meeting, which is the second Thursday in April.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. Could you repeat that? Do we have to vote on anything today?
So, Madam Chair, this is, for the record, Damon Haycock. I am going to need to post the per member per month fees, and the recommendations in this report are to decide the level of 2015 funding for the EEF program. It appears that has been decided, but there's no motion for it yet. Additionally, to decide the level of 2015 funding for marketing and advertising. And again, it appears there's been some answers, but no motion, and which will then lead into the proposed per member per month fees based on these factors above and the estimated enrollment. You don't have to vote on those, but that would make it immensely easier to develop this fee.
Madam Chairman, this is Florence Jameson. I would like to start on that one component with regard to the EEF funding and ask the board to consider a motion for the 30% increase over the budget prior last year for this projected year. Yeah, that's a motion. Motion?
Lynette can second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second on the EEF program to increase it 30% over the current funding. So any further discussion on that item? All right, we'll call for the vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm not hearing anything in Las Vegas.
Everyone in Las Vegas voted yes.
Thank you, that's very helpful. All right, so the motion passes. All right, marketing and advertising, that's the next one that we need. And I think the discussion that we had and what we developed, had you develop for it, was keeping it at the current standing at $500,000 per month.
For the open enrollment period. Madam
Right,
Chair.
for the open enrollment period. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. I'll move that we keep advertising at the current peak level of $500,000 per month.
Okay, is there a second?
Florence Jameson, I second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion among board members? All right, all those, I'll call for the vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a yes from everyone in Las Vegas.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie. All right, that motion passes. And then estimated enrollment.
And Madam Chair, before you call for the motion, this is just the third component of that equation. We have the dollars or the requested continuation of funding, but as mentioned to Ms. Johnstone earlier, you have anywhere from a $9.84 per member per month fee at 150,000 enrollees up to a $15.36 value for 60,000 enrollees. And I would like to also bring up the information that was brought up previously to the board, that please recognize that there is a motion out there in Nevada to eliminate the exchange as a state-based exchange. And I would caution board members to keep that in mind as you guys determine what the appropriate fee is, so we don't give that process any more ammunition.
And I'd like to ask council something. Would it be appropriate to show all three of these levels and the board decide on it at the adoption hearing, just so that people can see the differential on it?
I think you could reserve that for that April 10th meeting.
I think the numbers need to be out there for people to see. And then if you go back and check your worksheets and anything needs to be changed at all, we've got the opportunity of looking at that at that board meeting. But do board members object to that?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what that was, but I object to the board members being cautioned about any proposed nonsense going on outside of this meeting.
My suggestion was that when we post the adoption for the per member per month fee, that we listed at the 60,000 enrollment, the 100,000 enrollment, and the 150,000 enrollment to show the difference on the monthly fee, just so general public has an idea of what we're dealing with. But I'd like to just open that up for discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. Would we then satisfy the time frame that we need to actually make could we select one of those at the adoption hearing as the final figure to be included in the rates?
You can answer that question.
Madam Chair, I believe that your proposal is to have on the next agenda, or the April 10th agenda, three options for three scenarios. One scenario is adopt rates based on a 60,000 level of enrollment. Second scenario, 100,000. Third scenario, 150,000. You'd make the decision at that meeting, and that decision would be timely enough for staff to go ahead and work and get the process going in the rate setting for the upcoming year. And I'm looking at staff and
So for the record, Damon Haycock, yes, Mr. Belcourt, of course, is correct. We can post these as options 1, 2, and 3, but the board will need to adopt option 1, option 2, or option 3, or a different option altogether. We can't have a conditional option provided to the carriers to ensure, for their plan submission. So basically, we'll be putting together a $9.84 option, an $11.68 option, a $15.36 option. And at that adoption hearing, the board has every opportunity to pick one of those three or go with a completely different number, but we can only use one final number. And once it's set in regulation, the carriers will know, and they will build it into their plan development and move forward with their plan certification process.
Lawrence Jameson. Just a comment.
Go ahead.
Clarification. So this is by December of 2015, based on a total enrollment of 60,000 or 100,000 or 150,000. And if we were to consider right now, today, that we have approximately 23,500 confirmed plan qualified health plans, and we're still hoping to get another before this enrollment period is over. And with special enrollment, if we were optimistic, another 20,000 or perhaps far less, like 10,000, then we might have an initial, right now, approximately 34,000 members at the end of special enrollment, so that number of 60,000 that we would be shooting for for December of 2015 would mean that in the next enrollment period during the year, qualifying events, special enrollment, regular enrollment next year, that by the end of that time, if we had already 34,000 going, we would just only need to get another 24,000 to make the 60,000, which I think we could definitely do. And if we were shooting for the 100,000, we would just need to get another 65,000 in the new enrollment period. And then finally, the 150 would be to require in the new enrollment period almost another 115,000. Just for clarification of what our goals would be in the next enrollment period. So I think the 60,000 is very doable. The 100,000 is probably doable and reasonable. And I'm not sure about the 150. Just a comment.
Madam Chair, this is Leslie Johnstone. I appreciate the approach of having the information available to the public about how sensitive the administrative fee is to the actual enrollment. I wonder what we will have, what could be brought to us at the next board meeting to better judge if it's 60, 100, or 150,000, other than Dr. Jamieson's, kind of walk through just now that makes sense. But is there more that could be provided?
I have another question, comment, and then I know Mr. Fisher wants to say something. Let's say that we close out this open enrollment period, for discussion's sake, at 25,000 enrollees, and then we've got this special enrollment period. I would like to know if anybody has any statistics on, say we have the 25,000, how many of those people drop out because they now qualify for Medicaid or Medicare, or how many people drop out because they default on premiums. And I think we need to be sensitive to that number not being stable all the time. And I don't know if you've come across things like that, or if Massachusetts has some statistics that we can look at from their exchange that they did some time back. But
so, Madam Chair, for the record, Damon Haycock, I would suggest, and we will reach out to the Division of Insurance to provide comment at the adoption hearing. That is one of many answers I think the board would like to know. The markets have completely changed since last year to this year, so any research I have is going to be old data in old practices and old market conditions, and I can definitely provide that research at the adoption hearing. I believe the Division of Insurance will want to provide information on what the proposed per member per month fees will do to the market across both on and off the exchange, as the fees have to be basically, once they're approved, any plan that is offered on the exchange has to be the same off the exchange, and therefore that fee has to be absorbed across the entire state, basically, for everyone who's participating in health insurance. And so I believe that how that's going to affect the rest of the state and how it's going to affect the carriers is best brought to the board by the Nevada Division of Insurance. And so we will reach out to the commissioner and ask that he provide some input at the next report. And I'll turn this over to Alexia.
This is Alexia for the record. I was just going to say I'll take that back so that we can be prepared. And this is for the April 10th meeting? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Haycock, we actually just went down the path that I was going to go down, looking at it from the carrier's perspective. And as the state of Nevada looks at the fees and we go much higher than the 3.5%, I don't know how that impacts the carriers, the premiums that they're going to have to charge on and off the exchange. So you brought that question up, so thank you.
So if I understand, Madam Chair and members of the board, I'm going to develop a 3-option scenario for the per member per month fee adoption hearing, and that the discussion will stem from that on April 10th.
Well, that was my suggestion. I don't know that I've got the rest of the board concurring with that. So
This is Leslie Johnstone. I would so move.
Lewis, I would second the motion.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
That's everyone in Las Vegas.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks, Leslie. Okay, the motion is approved. So all right, let's go to agenda item number 8, which is the discussion for a professional recruiter. And Mr. Haycock?
Yes, for the record, again, Damon Haycock. Ms. Eaton has to take off for another conflict, so I will go ahead and tee up this report. The board requested of staff to do some research on the recruitment for the executive director. There were a few questions on the legality of utilizing grant funds, and did it go against any state law? And I will not speak for Mr. Belcourt, but I believe he responded when we asked that he could not find where it was against state law. It wasn't against, we contacted state purchasing to see if entering into a contract would violate any of the human resources processes. And we received information that because it was an unclassified position, it didn't fall into a lot of those administrative issues. And so all around the board, after looking at the OMB A87 that discusses how to expend funds for federal grants, we found that there was nothing that prevented the board being able to utilize a recruiting agency for the executive director's position. So with that, there's a proposal overview. Staff had reached out previously to two separate entities that I believe were brought up to the board before, Bob Murray and Associates and Mercer Morgan. And at the time of the writing of this report, we had submitted requests to a multitude of other agencies to try to receive additional quotes and bids to help develop a more robust response here today. We received some information over the last 2 days. One additional, it's not in the report, one additional agency, Morgan Consulting Resources, provided a bid to us, and they said their fee for the executive director recruitment would be 25% of the annual base salary with a negotiated cap, so we're talking over $25,000. They also state that I'll read it, quote it for us, that we believe the salary range posted for this role is too low and could extend the recruitment timeframe if it is not adjusted upward. So that's straight from Morgan Consulting. Additionally, we have placed advertisements for this recruitment. I believe that was brought up at the last report on the executive director. And it is my understanding, and Madam Chair can correct me if I'm wrong, but that she has received approximately 12 applicants that have sent their resumes in?
Through the electronic submission process, I've received 12, and one paper application has come here to the office. So we've got a total of 13 applicants so far.
So not to hop around on this report too much, and I apologize, and thank you, Madam Chair, that there are a couple of options to respond to the board's request for utilizing a recruiting agency. And it's important to understand the administrative process because that'll directly impact the time frame in hiring an executive director utilizing that agency. So one can contract with a recruiting agency that costs over $25,000, which so far all three agencies that have responded are over $25,000. And that would require a request for proposal. If you remember the process that was utilized to hire the business operations solution vendor, it's not nearly as intensive with as many questions and answers and parts to the contract, but the process is still the same. It will take between 30 to 60 days to get that process going. And so it will, if the board is looking to hire a permanent executive director faster, this process by design is going to be timely. The pros, of course, for utilizing this type of recruiting agency is that much of the burden of the reviewing of resumes and determining qualifications will no longer be the responsibility of the board or the board chair. Additionally, recruiting agencies are experienced at recruiting for executive level positions. The drawback, of course, is that utilizing a recruiting agency that charges over $25,000 is that time frame that I mentioned. It will take months, and the cost to hire a recruiting agency will be substantially more than continuing on with current recruitment efforts, potentially higher than the salary of the executive director itself. And where that statement stems from is if the board wishes that staff utilize a recruiting agency or multiple recruiting agencies, the total of all those costs may actually eclipse the cost of paying the annual salary of that executive director. Option two is to basically do the exact same thing, but try to find a recruiting agency that would be willing to work for under $25,000 to recruit the executive director, and that severely reduces the amount of time it takes to go through this process. The pros are utilizing, again, a recruiting agency. That burden is now pushed off of board members and the board chair and moved over into what is supposedly an industry expert to determine the qualifications and the appropriateness of the clients that they bring to the board for approval and for interviewing. The cons, of course, are trying to actually find a recruiting agency that will charge under $25,000. It may be difficult. It may even be impossible. And again, the time frame is still likely to be extended, just not nearly as far as utilizing the request for proposal process. The overall cost to recruit this executive director, again, may still become higher than the position's annual salary if we utilize multiple firms. So once you hit 5 firms, you've paid more than what the executive director is supposed to be paid in a year. So with that, this is the information that we have based on a lot of staff research and staff trying to pull this information from other recruiting agencies. Again, we have posted this position on a multitude of websites and in journals. And as you've heard from the Madam Chair, she has received some electronic submissions to date. So the recommendation, the recommendation is that, staff recommends that the board choose one or more of the options above. That third option that I didn't really go over, and I sincerely apologize, was just to continue with current recruiting efforts. So keep it as is, keep receiving, the board chair can keep receiving the submission of the applications and can review them for appropriateness and minimum qualifications, and then the board can move forward with hiring an executive director very similar to how it was done before by bringing in those individuals into a board meeting and interviewing those folks. So again, the staff recommend that the board choose one or more of the options above or pick a completely different one. And with that, I'm willing to take any questions.
Mr. Haycock, can you tell us where ads have been placed? I mean, if we've had to pay for ads?
So Madam Chair, I can do a couple off the top of my head. I know they were in the other report that was presented at the last board meeting, and I sincerely apologize. I know we've paid to submit ads on monster.com. I believe we tried to go with the exchange monthly newsletter that comes out to all the exchanges. There's the Reno Gazette Journal, the Las Vegas Review-Sun. There's the standard newspaper, and I don't remember the rest of them. But if you want, I can run out and grab the old report and be able to report on that.
I'm just curious. I remember at one time you talked about advertising in the Wall Street Journal and some of those publications. Has that been done?
I do not have that information at this time, but as I said, I could probably run out of here real quick and go find out for you.
No, I think that's okay. Questions from board members?
Marika, not so much a question as a comment. I think that the position is still important, that there's some advantages that may not be stated expressly of using a recruiting agency, even though they are expensive. One is simply they're a recruiter. That's what they do. They have expertise that the board doesn't have. And so in terms of this is something we're putting off, the board is putting off on someone else, yes, we're putting off something else that someone has expertise in and contacts that we don't have. And the second thing is I just don't think we have enough applications right now. I think we need to use a recruiter. And, if it's expensive, well, you get what you pay for. So I look forward to getting extra information, and certainly it would, I think, be helpful if we haven't done so already to have advertisements with the national media. So thanks.
Lawrence Jameson, comment and question?
Yes, Dr. Jameson, go ahead, please.
I was just wondering before we start discussing the recruiter at detail, I was wondering, since right now the brunt of this workload is falling on the shoulders of our chairwoman, and also just going forward, her personal feelings about doing this herself, kind of along the comments that were just made, how you feel about doing this on your own and then presenting, if it's an overwhelming task, if you're comfortable, or if you have any personal feelings about the recruitment and when we go into that discussion. But I was really interested in your personal opinion about how you feel comfortable doing this project and Then the other comment was about where it has been listed, because we did discuss this before, some of the listings we were interested in, and I didn't really hear too many of the major, I know he couldn't recall at the top of his head, but major places where most jobs are listed, and he mentioned the journal, etc., Review Journal and Sun, but actually those are often, are you running it daily in the paper? That's very expensive, and it's not always the most effective. So I would be interested in just knowing the list of the people this was listed with, because that really affects how many applications we're going to be getting in.
And I think their staff's going to find out that right now. It seemed like, if I remember correctly, we got a bit of a surge in applications in the last week, and it may be because some of that advertising is hitting. With respect to my comfort level on this, if the board is comfortable with me, I'm comfortable with it. I am going to reach out and get counsel from some of state staff as I go through this process. And I think the question I would have is, if you get a recruiter and we end up finding a good candidate through the process we're using right now, what are our obligations? I don't quite understand. And I didn't know you could get more than one recruiter. I think you had to stick with one.
Madam Chair, I believe it would depend on your contract with the recruiter. So if you had an exclusive relationship, then you really couldn't recruit outside the recruiter. But I don't know how industry standards is in that regard, so I couldn't tell you.
Marie, are you familiar with it? Marie, are you familiar with using a recruiter at all to know? Marie, I think are you on mute?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get my phone off mute. Sometimes it requires buttons. I actually don't use recruiters, but I know some. And I would agree with, I think it was Mr. Belcourt speaking, it really would depend on your contract. If you have, you're going to get 25% of the contract or the fee is the contract, and you obviously can't, and you get two recruiters, that would not be such a great idea. But I honestly think that if we get one good recruiter, you're probably going to be hitting the same population pool with both. Even if you're used to, you'll be hitting the same population pool. So I don't really see any added benefit of having more than one recruiter. And I would just, I think that it would be a good idea to stick with one.
Madam Chair, this is Lynn Atkins.
Yes, Lynn.
I think we should use a recruiter. I think we should cap our expenses at $24,999. I think we should get an RFP out and have it. Oh, we don't.
Mr. Haycock.
Sorry, Mr. Haycock for the record, or Damon Haycock for the record. Ms. Atkins, if it's under $25,000, we won't have to release a request for a proposal?
Right, thank you. I'm sorry, I just meant, or we're going to need requests for submissions from recruiters to offer their services to us. And I think, I don't know the details about using a recruiter either, but I'm assuming we would be able to negotiate terms that are satisfactory to us about the resumes that came in, and hopefully turning all those resumes over to the recruiter. So that's the route I would suggest.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
This is Leslie Johnstone. I would second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call for the. Pardon me?
One question.
Madam Yes, Chairman? Dr. Jamieson.
Lawrence Jamieson. So you guys were talking about it, but I didn't get it clear. So if we have the one recruiter, which I am in favor of, that mean then we would still be able to accept applications if someone just sends them directly? Or do we refer them to a recruiter? Or that'll just be negotiated with the recruiter?
This is Leslie Johnstone. I would suggest that we would just, if we receive any outside the recruiter, we would just forward them to the recruiter.
So for the record, Damon Haycock, staff can definitely put that into the negotiation with any recruiting agency that we can find that will meet the needs of the board.
I then have a question. Since that seems to be the desire of several of the board members, should we make an addendum to the motion that says that?
You know, I'm going to come across with a different opinion on that, because if we've got if this pool has one or two good candidates in it, and particularly if any of those candidates come out of state or local government, I don't think we should be paying a recruiter fee on those. So I just put that out there for your consideration.
This is Leslie Johnstone. I can definitely see the rationale for that. I think it's just a function of drawing a line in the sand with the recruiter in the negotiation process, that we're free to do we're free to do interviews and hire off of the existing list or existing applications that we have as of a certain date, and applications received after a certain date, the recruiter receives credit.
Madam Chair, this is Lynn Atkins, but I thought part of the complication after the last couple of board meetings when we spoke about this is that all of that stuff that Ms. Johnstone was describing needs to be done in open meeting, and that starts becoming very difficult with reviewing resumes and all of that. And so the part with the recruiter was the recruiter can kind of comb through everything, analyze, review, and do all of that outside of open meetings, and then take the best candidates after they do an evaluation and bring the best candidates back to the board for open meeting interviews. I think complicating this and having some people review them, and then you're going to have open meetings to review them, I think it's complicated. Obviously, I'd love to save that money as well, but I think that was really part of the reason we also really wanted to go down that road.
I would like to make an addendum to the motion, or a motion on that would state that any applications that come in after we have hired our recruiter, am I saying that? Would be passed on to the recruiter.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, then any applications received prior to signing a contract with a recruiter could be reviewed internally, and anything after that contract execution would go directly to the recruiter. Did you want to describe it? Maybe we can have Dennis walk us through the process again, so that at least the initial review is not subject to the open meeting law requirements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dennis Belcourt. The main issue is that if the committee or the board chooses a committee to do the process, then that has to meet in open to do their process. If the board chooses an individual to do the process, that individual isn't required to do an open meeting to undertake the selection process. That individual can consult with other people, just avoid having a serial quorum through that other process. In other words, the consultation process of the individual you specify to report back to the board with, a fistful of resumes should not include a consultation with the board, in a serial fashion outside of open meetings. It could be with 3 other people who are, but just don't create a quorum or a serial quorum. And I don't know if there's anything else that we covered before on that one.
It's a consultation process.
You can have a consultation process as long as you do not have a meeting of the board through a quorum.
Madam Chair, Lavon Lewis, for the record, I really think that we should just use a recruiter to do this, and that way we get the applications that have been screened, and then we can review them at that point. We have enough issues, I think, as a board, and if we get that initial part out of the way, then we can then proceed to make a choice among those final recommendations. I think that's a motion.
All right, do you want to review the motion one more time?
Lynn Atkins, I believe the motion in the second is to use a recruiter, cap the amount at $24,999, and when we enter into a contract, the recruiter is going to have to screen all the applications, including the ones that have come to the chair.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
That was everyone in Las Vegas.
Thank you. The motion passes. And then just for your information, this is who the marketing has gone to for the Reno Gazette Journal, Career Builder, Las Vegas Review Journal, Monster.com, Insurance Journal, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, the National Academy for State Health Policy, Inside Health Insurance Exchanges, and Nevada Hospital Association.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would hope that we would put out, again, I know it's not an RFP, but a request for proposals from recruiters who want to take on this task. And if we can get a deadline within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm not sure. I think 2 weeks is suggested down here. And then have those proposals. Maybe we'll have a special board meeting just for that to review those so we can kind of move on and get this process going. That's my suggestion. Our suggestion from down south, actually.
Okay, I'm just going to ask staff, do you think it'd be possible to have it ready for the next board meeting on April 10th, or is that too short a period?
For the record, Madam Chair, staff will put out the requests. We can't guarantee that we will get the response.
Okay.
Right. So I think that was what we were after, was to have the request or the notice issued as quickly as possible, and then to have a 2-week turnaround for responses to be received.
Okay. I think that they understand what the desire of the board is. All right, moving along to agenda item 9. Possible actions for other agenda items. Our next meeting is going to be April 10th. We're going to give staff a little bit of break here and not hold a weekly meeting. It'll be Thursday, April 10th. I do have a request for the agenda, and I would like to get a report from Deloitte to see how that assessment is going. And then also, I believe Ms. Rich puts out a report for us weekly on the enrollment statistics, and I would like to have that formatted and put in as an informational item on the agenda.
Madam Chair, is the next meeting back to our regularly scheduled 1 or 1:30, whatever time we normally had it?
Yes.
Thank you. Was that 1 or 1:30? I think 1.
Normally we have it at 1:30 unless the agenda's really heavy.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other items that they would like to have on the agenda for the 10th or some other time? Okay, hearing none, I think staff has direction on that. We're going to open it up for public comment before we adjourn. Is there anyone for public comment in Henderson?
Yes, we have one person.
Thank you. Anybody here? No?
Suzanne Thomas.
We can't hear. We need to get the microphone closer to the lady.
Suzanne Thomas, ADA
Thank
and
you.
Disability Advocate. You need an address and phone number? Okay. I'm wondering if you can help me. I've been struggling with the process since last October to provide access to people who are deaf and cannot read and write, and have gotten nowhere. We had the welfare department that finally, after much pressure, put together an event on December 23rd, which was supposed to be the last day that you could sign up, and they brought in certified deaf interpreters and hearing interpreters, but nobody brought any information to actually register anyone. Well, I shouldn't say that. Welfare brought packages, but they only printed the even number pages and didn't print the odd pages, so they couldn't sign up anyone. And with that, they were given an address to go to sign up. The people at that organization refused to provide interpreters, as I can verify each and every one of the organizations who you have contracted with to provide services to negotiate this maze have refused to provide interpreters, every single one. And in trying to rectify the problems that became readily available in the December 23rd meeting, I have been working with the welfare department, with the health Silver State, and with Mr. Ramirez's group. And I learned last week from Barbara Cook at the welfare department that they were putting together, quote unquote, an event on the 29th to pick up the last of the holdouts, so to speak. Well, I have people who are not holding out. I have people that can't get. And she told me she would get back to me, and calls to her office resulted in no return calls. And so finally, I didn't get her today, but she sent me an email.
Mr. Fisher, can we make that happen on Saturday?
I do not have an answer for that question. I can certainly look into it and see what the possibility is, yes.
I think we have to make that happen, and I can help from my end. We can find, there's some agencies down here.
Well, let me explain.
So if we can, I'll get this woman's information, and I'll get it to you this afternoon, Mr. Fisher, and I'll work as well. But especially with a request, we have to have a deaf and hard of hearing interpreter at the event on Saturday.
Okay, let me explain.
That was going to be my next question. Approximately how many would we need?
Well, you need a CDI, a certified deaf interpreter, which we don't have any in the state of Nevada, so you're going to have to bring one from either Arizona or California. And we need a hearing interpreter. The people that we're talking about, not through any fault of their own, because their school district, Clark County is included, did not teach them English. They sign ASL. ASL does not have a written language. So there's no way for them to communicate a complicated issue like this without a certified deaf interpreter. So it's a team. And there's been plenty of notice given, as I can attest to, and it still can be done, at least I hope it can be done, but it needs to be done.
Thank you for offering to help. I appreciate it. Any other public comment in Henderson?
No more, Madam Chair.
All right. How about here in Carson City? Yes.
Rebecca Montero with RLM LLC. This is just pretty much for the record. I think that our Xerox representative might have left. Just to kind of express what we've been seeing this week as far as customers and different things that are happening. I just want to put it on record. We're seeing a lot of denials of coverage going out to people that have selected plans and paid for them. We don't really know why. We have payments that we have confirmations for, documenting confirmations for, that their policies have disappeared. They had authorization for the payment, got a confirmation of the payment. Monies were never taken, policies are gone. Another thing that we've brought to Xerox, and we're hoping that somewhere in this channel will get included, but the letter's going to the clients with no copies to brokers. If there's going to send out something to the clients that is pretty confusing, a lot of it seems like it was written as English as a second type of language, that maybe the broker should get a copy of this so that we can help the clients, because even if we go on the portal, we cannot find what actually went out to the clients. So our clients actually come in to us, we make copies of it, and we handle it that way. But I'd like to be a lot more proactive and know what's going out. Another correspondence that's been going out to folks is that they missed their cost sharing reduction because they chose a bronze. We've been hearing this from our customers, and that's fine, that's well and good, but once again, brokers aren't getting this documentation, they're just going out. Monday morning, floods of people come into our office. I read the letter, I do not understand it. And what we got to understand is a lot of people chose the bronze plans, and it were expressed that they had the cost sharing reduction but they couldn't afford it. I mean, sometimes it's a difference of $10 a month and a huge difference in plan, but they cannot afford it. But we just need to be kept in the loop so that we can be proactive. And now, like I said, these policies falling off the books for lack of payment, this may feed into Xerox's numbers that are so large because we thought they were sold, they were paid for, they had confirmations, everything. And now we're getting calls from these people saying, I got a bill and the first payment's gone. We go in there, we can't find them at all. So they're having a lot of billing issues. You cannot set up automatic payment for folks. You actually have to go in there. We have a tickler system in our office, and we're actually helping people manually put in their payments on a monthly basis, or else they'll fall off. We've had to hire numerous customer service reps just to get these done for the clients that we service. So just for the record, just so that everybody's aware, if you are not aware, we'd love to inform. Like I said, we have numerous clients that we're having issues with. Thanks so much.
Thank you for taking the time both before and after the meeting. Appreciate it. Anyone else here in Carson City? All right. I want to thank the board members for doing this week after week after week. It's going to be nice to get a little break here till April 10th. But thank staff, because I know this has been really difficult on you as well. So we'll regroup Thursday, April 10th, same place, same time, or not same time, 1:30. And again, thank you for everyone's preparation and all the work that you've done.